Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto died on graduation day in Harem in Bleach? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Phantom Raven for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Land of Fire, Forest of Konoha, night of the graduation exams. A lone figure lands in a small clearing by a rundown shed, the clouds above obstructing the moon's light, and laying out the prefect escaping cover. The figure quickly stood up from their landing, looking around, trying to make sure he was alone. Feeling that he was in the clear, he dropped the long 4.5-foot cylindrical object he had just stolen. A large scroll, which he had carried here from the village leader's home. Kneeling down, they undid the lock that held the scroll closed, before they unrolled it out on the ground, hoping to learn something that would help him pass. For you see, he had yet again failed his ninja graduation exam for the third time. This was his last shot at fulfilling his dream of becoming a ninja. Lucky one of his senseis had told him of an old secret exam that would let him pass. Now, contrary to popular belief, the boy was no fool. No, surely, in fact, he actually had the makings of being a prodigy of hard work. That is, if someone would actually teach him something. He was considered the blight of his village, so no one wanted anything to do with him. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. The clouds began to roll away, letting the moonlight shine down, revealing the figure to be a young blonde boy with seemingly untamable wild spiky locks, wearing bright, nearly neon orange jumpsuit with bit of white and blue mixed in. His sky blue skimming the scroll as his oddly whiskered birthmarked face wrinkled in frustration at the first jutsu listed in the scroll. It was the same type of jutsu that caused him to fail his test of Bushin Jutsu 3 times in a row. Letting out an annoyed whine, he figured he would give the technique a try. What could it hurt? Right. 2 hours later, the boy sat on the ground, barely breathing hard, but he had learned the jutsu, even picking up a little bonus, having discovered that when the Bushin dispels, he gained their memories. A joyous feral grin set upon his face at his accomplishment, but it was quickly wiped away by a sudden surprise. "Naruto!" an irate man shouted. The boy, now known as Naruto, quickly turned around and almost seamlessly switching back to his idiot mask, hoping that his sensei wouldn't notice. As Naruto came to face the man, "Iruka-sensei, what brings you out here tonight?" Naruto asked nervously, rubbing the back of his head, trying and hoping to look innocent, to avoid being trouble. The man walked out of the tree line, revealing to be a tall 5 feet 10 inches brown-haired person, male in his late teens, early 20s, with a scar going across his nose. He was wearing a grass-green Chunin vest and grayish ANBU-style pants with the standard ninja Tobi sandals. Iruka crossed his arms and narrowed his brown eyes at the boy, in response to his lame act of trying to talk his way out of trouble again. "Uzumaki Naruto, don't even start that dumb game. The real question here is, why you are here, and why in the heaven's name did you steal the forbidden scroll?" Iruka questioned in a loud and heated voice, thinking that this was just another one of Konoha's #1 prankster's stupid jokes. Naruto, on the other hand, was a little confused and surprised. He thought this was just a copy of the forbidden scroll, not the actual thing. He knew then he was now in real big trouble, even more than last week when he painted the Hokage's monument. Naruto began to open his mouth to reply to his teacher, but was cut off by a sudden rain of kunai aimed at the clearings to occupants. Both sensei and student dodged to opposed sides of the clearing, with Iruka towards the old shed and Naruto to the bushes. However, right as Iruka landed front of the worn-down shelter, he was immediately pinned to the outer wall of the structure with even more kunai. Moreover, as he tried to push himself off the shed's wall, he found he was also bound tightly by chakra-draining ninja wire that was quickly sapping his strength away. Naruto found himself rolling into the bush, a briar bush to be exact. Nevertheless, he ignored the thin needles stabbing into his clothing and skin, concerning himself more with the origin of the hail of weapons. Looking out from in the middle of the bushes, the boy saw a newcomer male land. He was about the same height as Iruka, only about 1.5 inches taller. He had gray wild locks with pale skin and beady insane black eye. Dressed in nearly the same attire, only with lighter gray pants and a forest green Chunin vest. On his back rested 2 large shuriken stars held there by a tan leather strap going across his torso. Naruto could see the dark and creepy grin that held upon the new man's face that he had seen before. Naruto knew exactly who the man was, the very person that told Naruto about this so-called test. Tuji Mizuki was his name, Naruto's other sensei from the academy. Upon seeing Mizuki's evil-looking grin, Iruka doubled his efforts of trying to break free, but the more he struggled the more chakra was sapped away. Mizuki, seeing his best friend struggling, could not help but chuckle darkly at his coworker's futile fight against his A and BU class ninja wire, the very kind they used to bind prisoners for transport. Well, I've finally found you too. Now, Mizuki said, pausing to turn towards the bushes where he saw Naruto dive over at. Naruto, good job getting the scroll, couldn't have done it better myself, he said in an arrogant tone. Now, Fox Boy, give me the scroll or I'll kill Iruka, he finished as he pulled one of the large shurikens from his back and held it up to Iruka's throat. Naruto sat frozen and wide-eyed at the scene, not quite understanding just what was going on. How could anyone want to kill the winner of Konoha's Nicest Guy Award 6 years running? The boy had no clue of what to. On one hand, he didn't want the teacher-turned-traitor to get his grubby tainted hands of the village's archive of most dangerous techniques. On the other hand, Naruto didn't want to lose one of the few people who actually treated him like normal. So moving from out of the bushes with the rolled-up scroll in hand, fear and anger within his eyes, the teen glared at the traitor. However, Mizuki, seeing this, just laughed at the young boy attempt to look brave and the glare the demon was giving him. A dark thought raced across Mizuki's mind as he took a few steps toward his former student, beginning to spin the shuriken in hand. On second thought, I'll just kill you both, save me some trouble. And I think I'll start with my old buddy, the man said, turning about, flinging the sharp star at the other teacher, making the other two occupants go wide-eyed at the action. Without thinking, Naruto pumped as much as chakra into his legs that he could as he pushed off, disappearing in sudden bursts of speed. Iruka heard the projectile getting closer and closer but could not escape, so he just tightly shut his eyes, waiting for the inevitable. Hearing the sound of the weapon hitting flesh, but oddly no pain, no bright light, only Mizuki's dark laughter ringing out. Opening his eyes, he instantly wished he didn't, as tears began to form in his eyes, for the shuriken did hit something Iruka wished it had not. Naruto, the saddened teacher cried out as he saw one of the edges of the shuriken sticking into the boy's chest, and as if Iruka crying out was a comedian's best joke, Mizuki laughed even louder than before. The two men had thought that they had seen the end of the young boy, but little did they know that they were about to witness the birth of a legendary, unknown location. Naruto sprung up, spitting out water. He hoped it was, gasping for air. Looking down at his chest, he was shocked and thankful the lack of a large shuriken sticking out of it. Shifting his eyes off his chest, he realized he was no longer in the forest anymore, but what looked to be an extremely dimly lit sewer, but because of the dim lighting, it was hard for him to tell. Rising up to his feet, Naruto quickly noticed how dry he was, especially considering he was just laying underwater. Deciding that the mystery of the insta-drying clothes was something that could wait, he began to look for a way back to Iruka and that lowly snake Mizuki. However, before the boy could even get 4 steps away from where he started, a loud and strange disembodied voice cried out before Naruto. Come to us, come quickly, it said in a smooth and light yet loud tone, accompanied with sudden and knockdown blast of wind that swept Naruto off of his feet back under the water. Popping back up with a gasp for air again, he quickly gets back up, turning to where he heard the sound originate, peering fiercely into the darkness. Come to us if you wish to save your sensei, another voice said, only much more rougher and male sounding, without wind blast. Upon hearing the words save your sensei, Naruto shot off into the darkness towards the voices, running as fast as he possibly could, following the tunnel that lay before him, following all the twists and turns, hastily making his way through the ankle-high waters, until he made on final turn and found himself in a long straightaway with a near blinding light at its end. Wondering if he had made a wrong turn, Naruto was about to turn back when, Come Naruto, the voices cried out together with a small gust of wind behind it. Steeling his resolve, he burst forth with all of his strength, and his eyes closed into the light as it swallowed him whole. Feeling light fade away, Naruto opened his eyes to an even stranger place than he was before, a dark room in which he could not see. Just as worry began to set upon him, light suddenly burst from up under his self, spiraling outward, looking as if birds were taking off. Peering down, Naruto sees a strange, massive stained glass-looking floor under him, with a mural depicted upon it. It seemed to be divided into 3 different parts. In the center where Naruto stood was the largest sector of the design, had a picture of a blonde spiky-haired man in a white cloak and a beautiful red-haired woman in a red kimono fighting against the Kyuubi. A picture around the outside of the large picture was a border of medium circles going around it, each one filled with a portrait of one of Naruto's closest people, like the third, Iruka, the ramen chiefs, and a few others. In addition, the last ring was the smallest and had a pattern to it. The leaf symbol, then an orange swirl, then another leaf, then a picture of a blue and white wave. Naruto could not help but stare at the floor, mesmerized by the art, but he was quickly broken from his trance when suddenly the floor began to shake violently, causing Naruto to struggle to remain standing. Just when Naruto thought it could not worsen anymore, suddenly the floor shattered beneath him, plummeting him into a black abyss. Falling further and further downward, Naruto was hoping this odd nightmare would soon be over, as soon the blackness began to change to a sky blue color. Moreover, as if Naruto wasn't already questioning his sanity, he really began to worry when he passed through a cloud. "What the hell is going on?" he yelled internally, completely freaking out from what was going on. "Warara!" Naruto heard behind him. Looking back, his eyes nearly popped out at the sight before them. A large, odd-looking white dragon was racing towards him. The beast looked more like a wing-flapping spaceship than a fleshly beast, World of Nothing from Kingdom Hearts for reference. The dragon soars right past him, the wind from it knocking Naruto all about. Just when the teen had managed to right him, he saw the beast coming back for a second pass, only for it to stop less than 4 feet away from him. Jumping from its back was a human-like figure with wings that quickly soared down towards Naruto as he yet fell. As a blur, it quickly overtook him. It grabbing one of his feet, it flipped him with a giggle, and like magic, when Naruto's feet came back around to their starting point, Naruto stopped falling. It was as if he suddenly was standing on an invisible platform. Turning around, Naruto found himself face to face with another, his savior. She was quite tall in height, of looking to be at least 6 feet 0 inches, looking to be about in her 20s, with long platinum blonde hair that flowed in the wind, setting on top of a heart-shaped face with a small button nose and mischievous but tempting yellow reptilian eyes. Her body was hourglass-shaped with dangerous curves built in, graced with a pair of E-cup breasts, sculpted waist, and a sweet backside. She was clothed with a sleeveless GI top that looked to be struggling to contain her bust, and a long skirt that had a slit going up the middle of her right leg, showing off her long, smooth skin. She was the breathing definition of the word temptress. Naruto's brain had come to a complete halt at the full sight of her, and she knew it. Gaining a devious smirk upon her face, she stepped closer to the young boy walking behind him, wrapping her arms around his neck before whispering into his left ear. "So I'm the first one, huh? Hee, we're going some much fun," she said in silky sweet and playful voice before she gentle biting his ear after saying the word fun, switching over to his right side. "Do you wish to fly with me, master? Hee, we could rule the skies all we want. But I need you to say my name first. Can you hear it, my beautiful name? HM?" she finished in the same tone. Naruto stood still and silent for a few seconds before saying, "Kaze. Your name is Kazagafuku, isn't it?" The woman's eyes widened with intrigue at the boy's response as a smile dawned upon her face. Slipping around to front of Naruto, she looks him deep into his sky blue eyes. "So you do know my name. It is Kazagafuku, but you're not quite ready to know my command yet, master. You're not ready to handle tame this wind yet. But for being such a good boy, remembering my name, and being oh so handsome, I'll give you a hand with this fight of yours. Okay," Kazagafuku said with her silky voice. But before Naruto could question her about what was going on, the world blanked out with white. Back at the old shed, it had been nearly over 3 minutes since Naruto had fallen, and Mizuki was proceeding to slowly beat poor Iruka to death. The loving teacher looked like petrified crap, eyes blackened, mouth bloodied, jaw busted, ribs bruised, but he couldn't care less at moment. He had failed to protect his favorite student, and now he was being beat to death by his former best friend. Mizuki was tried with Iruka. He wouldn't even cry out in pain anymore, so the traitor reached down and pulled out the shuriken that was in Naruto. "Hey Iruka, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to end you with the same shuriken that I killed the beast with," Mizuki said in arrogant tone. Little did he know that the instant he pulled out the bladed weapon, the wound had completely closed up. Just as Mizuki was about to swing the edge across his ex-coworker's throat, a powerful pressure suddenly sprung up from where the body of Naruto lied. Causing Mizuki to leap back, thinking that the ceiling was suddenly failing, he pulled out the other shuriken from his back. The traitor's heart nearly popped out of his chest when he saw Naruto stand up like a zombie. Rolling his neck around, Naruto put his right hand up to his chest as a gleam of light began to shine from it, and a hilt of sword was sticking out of it. Pulling out the blade, the two other ninja could not believe what they were seeing. When the blade was fully out, it was revealed to be a long katana sword made of whitened steel, with a cloud-shaped tsubasa and a golden hilt. Giving the sword a few practice swings before he smoothly slid into a sword stance, leaning back on his right leg while moving his left forward. His sword held parallel to his eyes as his left arm held outward. Sora no Odori, Diapo, Tabarugo, Naruto said in a cold whispered voice before he suddenly reached back with blade in hand for deep swing that scraped the ground, going in an upward diagonal path. As the sword swing followed through, a monstrous wave of wind came forth from the blade and quickly took on a massive maw-like shape. The wind maw abruptly came upon the traitorous teacher as his eyes suddenly widened in pure fear. It let forth a deafening roar that caused Mizuki's bladder to lose control. All before the jaws of the maw snapped shut on him, and that was the last thing that Mizuki knew. Iruka sat in a chair in the Hokage's personal office, still like a statue as his mind tried to process all of the information it had received over the last few hours. Flashback 2 hours ago. A sickening crunch is heard as the jaw wave collapses upon the former teacher, followed by the sound of grinding of bones, flesh, and wind. The noise continued until the wave crashed into the shed, completely demolishing it. As pieces of the shack rained down, Naruto seemed to just stand there, eyes glazed over. The teen's eyes began to slowly close, Naruto's body started to sway. All just as Iruka suddenly burst through the top of the new pile of the debris that was once the shed, gaping for fresh air. He was sporting new cuts and bruises all over his body. His clothes had rips and tears all over it as his body cried out in extreme pain. But he instantly forgot all about himself and his injuries when his eyes fell upon the sight of Naruto beginning to fall to ground. And as if he suddenly had the combined strength of Tsunade and Might Guy, the Chunin teacher instantly and completely broke free of the pile of junk, dashing over to the teen. He managed to slide right under to boy to catch his falling form. Cradling the boy's head upon his lap, he briefly saw the closed eyes of the prankster open barely, as a smile graced Naruto's face. "Sensei, you're okay. That was pretty awesome, right? I need a nap now, night," the prankster said as he drifted off to unconsciousness. Checking Naruto's pulse, Iruka lets a sigh of relief and let a few tears form in his eyes as the boy/hero had only fallen to sleep. Looking up from the tender big brother little bro moment, the teacher began to worry about the whereabouts of his former captor, his eyes scanning the forest tree line and floor as he searched for the traitor. But when a horrible smell made its presence known, the teacher's eyes were drawn to the spot where he had last seen his former colleague, but his eye nor stomach was quite ready for what they saw. For instead of finding a fallen body where Mizuki was, the remaining teacher glazed upon a mangled pile of blood and flesh as the ground that looked as if something had eaten the traitorous assistant, and spat the gruesomely mangled corpse. It was like looking at old chewed-up bubble gum that had been sitting for days with red and white things sticking out of it. That was the best way the poor teacher could describe it. And as if God wished for Iruka to stop thinking about the mess of a former human being, the teacher sensed 3 new presents. And sure enough, 3 ANBU members dropped down from the trees: Nico, Taka, and Kuma, all of Naruto's former protectors. The 3 elite ninjas looked over the scene, and when their eyes reached the pile formerly known as Mizuki, even though they all were seasoned ANBU members, committed countless assassinations, missions, and performed many horrid acts in the defense of their home Konoha, they had to control their gag reflex to keep from lost their lunch and dinners at the sight of the traitor. The only purple-haired female, Nico, had managed to control her stomach. First stepping forth, she asked, "Iruka-san, what in the world happened here? We heard that loud roar and saw pieces of wood rain down," she said in a bewildered voice, trying to figure out just what was going on. But before the Chunin could reply, another made their presence known. The rest. "I believe I can answer that, Nico-san," a man's voice said before its owner walked out from the darkness of the forest floor, all awakened eyes fell upon the newcomer. He was at least 6 feet in height. It was hard for them to tell due to the getas he was wearing with a pointed chin face. He had light bordering pale blonde hair covered with a green and white bucket hat. Dressed in a dark green shirt and pants, with a black jacket over it that had a white diamond pattern going around the bottom of it. Carrying in his right hand was a hooked cane that he had resting against his right shoulder. The man's light gray eyes looked like they had seen many a hard day, but when he had completely exited the shadows of the trees he shut them while smiling, saying, "Shall we all go to the Hokage's office?" The man questioned with a tilt of his head, making him seem younger slightly. But before any of the ANBU could question the identity of the mystery man, they all received orders over their built-in headset in their masks. With single look the three nodded and moved. Kuma grabbed Naruto from Iruka while Taka put the teacher's arm over his shoulder, lifting him to his feet before the entire group shined away. In front of the Hokage Manor, 12:00 m. The group appeared, with the mystery man appearing later than the rest due to him mistakenly going the Hokage's tower instead. The two guards open the door for the group and they all enter in. I don't feel like describing the place, so use your imagination. I'm going to skip to the office. The group enters into the old man's office, Taka setting Iruka down into one of the armchairs in front of the desk, while Kuma went and laid Naruto down on the couch on the back wall away from the desk. And the odd and mysterious man followed behind Nico, quickly holding his hat to keep it from falling as he came in. The group sees the elderly Hokage puffing away on his pipe as he tirelessly works upon his backed-up paperwork. The smoking man looks up to see his 3 ANBU standing at attention awaiting orders and the 3 other occupants in the room. Taking on final puff from his pipe before removing it to say, "Thank you, 3 are dismissed." And all 3 of the masked warriors shined away, leaving the teacher, the odd man, and Naruto with the ruler of Konoha. The odd man gained a smile before he commented, "You old ape, you're still alive? How does the dinosaur summons know that one of their own is missing?" Ha ha! Iruka could not believe what he was hearing. Who exactly is this guy that he can talk to the Hokage like that? Sarutobi, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes at the comment before lazing his fingers together and setting his elbows upon the desk, puffing a few breaths from his pipe. You're one to talk, Urahara-san. You're almost as old as I am. Old friend, maybe someone should inform the dinosaur summons about you." The Hokage quipped back with before both of the men burst into laughter, while Iruka looked on confused. What are they talking about? The thought, trying to use his shinobi training to gather some information. "I'll have you know that I am only 60 years young, thank you very much," the odd man, now known as Urahara-san, said in between his laughter and with a smile, while the poor teacher's eyes nearly popped out. "What, this guy can't be 60, he doesn't look a day over 35. The teacher screamed mentally. Sarutobi reaches over and hits an intercom button on his desk, and a Chunin vest-garbed woman opens the door. "Yes, Hokage-sama," she said with a light voice. The Hokage nods before saying, "Yes, Tsubaki-chan, can you fetch my personal doctor for poor Iruka-kun for me, please?" End of flashback. So there the 3 men sat as they awaited the awakening of Naruto. The Hokage's own doctor had come, healed Iruka and checked Naruto, and left. The 2 older gentlemen were talking and laughing at old stories they would tell, while the young man simply listened to the tales of the old men poorly spent youth, occasionally looking back at the resting boy. And every time the teacher would ask who the other man was, one of the elder men would reply it would be revealed as soon as Naruto-kun awakens. It was coming upon the 3-hour mark when some noise was heard back where Naruto lied. All 6 eyes are drawn back to the back of the room, as the teenage boy sat up, swinging his feet to the floor. Iruka's eyes immediately widened at the sight of the teen's face, for right up under the whisker marks on both sides of his face was the appearance of what looked like pieces of a skeleton of a carnivore's lower jaw attached to the boy's own. 4 teeth on each side of his face connected to a beastly jaw that went to his neck, going partly down it. The teacher was about to say something, but when he felt the powerful combined glares from both of the mature men, the words died within his throat. "Ah, my head! Was that all a dream?" the boy said to himself, clearing out his eyes of sleep. Noting that he wasn't in his apartment but the Hokage's private study, and that he was not alone with the old man, he decided to speak up. "Hey, how'd I get here, old man? What happened to Iruka and Ai-sensei? And why is everyone staring at me? Do I have something on my face?" Naruto asked before feeling his face and feeling the sharp-toothed lower maw upon his face. His eyes widening more and more as he felt around his lower jaw. Jumping up to his feet, he ran over to a nearby mirror to see that the skeleton jaw wasn't the only thing different about him. His eyes had taken on a deeper color of blue, and his skin had become tanner than before. His blonde hair had become wilder and thicker like fur, and also taken on a darker shade of yellow. His birthmarks had thickened, becoming dark, his ears gaining a more pointed look. He looked more beastly in appearance. Turning to face the Hokage and his two other guests, he made a dash for the old man's desk, finding himself there faster than he originally thought he could, causing him to misjudge the distance and almost crash into the desk between the two men. And not his new reflexes suddenly kick in, slamming his hands down onto the desk in a blur, keeping him from smashing his lower torso against the large Konoha leaf insignia on the front side. Looking down amazed at his hand's speed, he notices that his fingernails, while before being short, nubby, and unkempt, now were longer, shinier, sharp. It was like his hands had become sorta like that some woman or Kiba, breath when they got mad or fight. I remember that day I had just got done putting laxatives in the dog food and water-activated stink bombs in their washing machine and dryer. I was almost home free until that some lady found me, and when she found out what I did she got some mad and beastly. I barely made it out alive, Naruto reminisced before shaking his head, trying to focus back on the matters at hand. Looking directly at the very man he called Gigi, he narrowed his eyes before saying, "Gigi-san, what in the Kami's name is going on? Why am I here? What's happening to me?" Taking another puff of his pipe, the Hokage looked back at the boy sternly before asking him to pull up another chair and sit. Seeing the stern look within the elder's eyes, the prankster knew there was no room to argue against it. So quickly replying with the asked action, the youngest male present found a nearby unused seat and hastily brought it over in between the other two guests, and sat quietly awaiting the much-sought answers from Gigi-san. Drawing in another smoke-filled breath, the powerful leader nodded to the other eldest man. Rising to his feet, Urahara removed his bucket hat, revealing his shaggy hairdo. Walking around to where Sarutobi sat, and stood to the leader's right side, taking in a deep breath, he began to reveal his sins. "Hello Naruto-kun, my, haven't you grown up, and so fast too? I remember when you were born, such a lively rugrat you were. I can hardly believe it's been 13 whole years since we've met face to face. A time that both came and went too fast, and was far too long." The pale-tinted blonde began confusing both of the room's younger males. He knows Naruto / he knows me? Both teacher and student thought respectively. Why, you look so much like them. But that can wait for later, for tonight you will learn many things kept from you. Many of an well-meaning adult's plans consequences will be brought to light, and my only hope is that it will not break you. After tonight you will need to know everything about yourself, for it will be the only way you will have a hope of surviving the comeback lash alive. I know asking this is somewhat against your nature, but I must still ask that you hear out these two old fools' confessions and hold in mind that if was done to try and protect you. Urahara continued, his voice becoming more somber by the minute. Naruto was now on edge, trying to figure out just what was this strange guy was talking about. I guess I'll start by saying I'm sorry for not being there. I know you confused, so let me clarify by introducing myself. My name is Namikaze Urahara Kisuke, and I am the father of Namikaze Urahara Minato, the fourth Hokage, your father. And your real full name is Namikaze Uzumaki Urahara Naruto. Now I can see that you realize what that makes us, but before you begin to go off on me, listen. There was a good reason why I could not raise you. And the reason begins with the history of your two clans, the Namikaze and the Kazumas, and their legendary rivalry. Both youth of the room sat wide-eyed at the information. Irika was about to stand and began fusing at Kisuke, but a look from Sarutobi stopped him in his tracks. Long before the first great ninja war, before the great Senju / Uchiha rivalry became famous, was another legendary rivalry already going on, between the famed masters of swords, seals, crafters, and warring scholars, the Namikaze clan, and the battle-ready, combat-birthed, slightly savage, powerful warriors, the Kazuma. Now the reasons of what started the feud were lost in time, but the hate was passed down anyways. Shameful to say, it might have been partly the fact that Namake's clan tended to stick their noses up at the Kazuma, but that's just speculation. But their war was very much real, and constantly fought. Both sides seeming having endless supplies of their bloodline-wielding fighter and ninja behind them. The Namake's clan is naturally gifted with extreme chakra control, understanding of the sealing arts, as well as being expert craftsmen, blacksmiths, and jutsu crafters. A fact only made greater from their bloodline called the Tamashi no Gizo, or the Forge of the Soul, which grants perfect nimble bodies for kenjutsu, longevity, massive reserves, and an ability to make a sword reflection of their soul from their chakra that differs from member to member. My own cane is one of these, Kisuke said, holding up his cane before he pulled the top from the bottom to show it really to be a sword in disguise before sliding it back closed and continuing on with his confessions. The blades have 3 states of being, but I can teach that to you later. The Kazuma bloodline, the Chukuno Ikari, or the Wrath of the Hallow bloodline, grants its wielder denser muscle mass, increased reflexes, eagle-like eyesight with motion tracking, regenerative healing abilities, fitter body types, insanely high chakra reserves with high replenishing rates, the ability to harden or sharpen their skin to steel-like quality, and enhanced strength. With their only downsides being a love of fighting and drawing blood, increased male hormone level meaning highly aggressive, easily driven to a bloodlust state, and during new moons and full moons their powers go haywire, and they act like beasts attacking anyone or thing nearby that moves. For them, the longer they fought the stronger they got. Although they begin to become wilder as the battle would rage on, they were a true threat on any battlefield. The 2 clans fought back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with no clear winner ever seeming to emerge. The tradition of the clans' rivalry carried down their lines for over 200 years until an heir of each clan felt that the rivalry was pointless and settled on a truce and an alliance sealed by a marriage between the 2 heirs. The marriage went off without a hitch, and soon too gave birth to a child, who they named Vizard, and they were quite special to both clans as they had both of the bloodlines and was extremely strong. They were praised and hailed as the bringer of the new age between the clans. However, in their joy they had forgot something about the Kazuma bloodline. Forgetting about the moon cycle and when it takes effect. The cycle comes into play after the wielder's 13th birthday. There isn't a set time it activates, or even if it full activates at all, but for Vizard it came at the wrong time for them. It happened right during a big festival celebrating the crowning of the 2 heirs as heads of their respective clans. None of the young Kazumas were there due to them still trying to gain control of themselves. But Vizard was enough by theirself. Right before their parents were crowned, the cycle kicked in and Vizard began to try and slaughter all those in attendance, almost succeeding in its task had it not been for the elders of both clans. But still both clans that day lost hundreds if not over 1,000 each that day, done solely by the mighty one warrior. As for the 2 heir hopefuls, they had been among those who perished that sad day. Not even a day after the burials, and the alliance fell through like a brick through paper, and their clan war started yet again. Only this time it was accompanied by the first great ninja war. And because both sides were now seriously lacking in their normal strength and numbers, the war came even harder on them. The very day after the first ninja war, and both clans met one last recorded peaceful time, and there they all came to an agreement that from there on there would not to be any fraternization of any kind except battle between the 2 clans. And any child born from the breeding between the 2 clans was to be killed at birth along with the parents, so that the event they called the Vizard Sin would never happen again. Also so that those who willingly loved, slept with, and birthed a Vizard could not be protected. They even went as far as making it so that if you helped, hid, or protected a Vizard child and its parents, then the offender and his family were slain as well. And with the new rule being accepted by all the elders there, the 2 clans parted, shifting more to a cold war than a full feud. The Kazuma moved down by Kaze no Kuna while the Namakes headed over near Bamizu no Kuni, and both struggled along trying to rebuild back to the days before the Great Vizard Sin. Now let's shift to the time in between the first and second ninja war. Back then I was a teenage genius, a prodigy in our clan's sealing arts, and recently crowned the head of the clan's R&D section. And if life then could not get any better for me, the love of my life and best friend in the world had just said yes to marry me. I was on cloud 9, thought nothing could touch me. Boy, was I wrong. The day after my honeymoon, the leaders of the Elder 44 Council, the governors, the clan, came to my lab saying that while have grown back in strength, the Kazumas are still a threat to us as a clan, and something need to be done about it. And back then I was a diehard loyalist to the clan cause I was always taught that we were the heroes and the Kazuma were evil. So the elders said that they had a project for me to work on, and seeing as I was ahead on all my other work, I agreed to work on it. And for the love, Kami, I wish I hadn't. The project involved kidnapping live Kazuma children, grave robbing Kazuma graveyards, performing some of the most vile and despicable acts, experimenting, and researching on both dead and alive babies, toddler, children, and preteens, all in for the sake of finding an edge against the savage beasts of the Kazuma. I was truly sickened by their justifications. I thought, if we are so good, if we were so strong, if we were so much better than the Kazuma, then why commit these experiments? And you know what their response was? They're not humans. Why would you think they were? They're only savage beasts, just like that filthy Inuzuka clan, those bone-wielding freaks of nature, the Kagaya clan, those weak blood-loving savages from Kirigakure. We are noble Namikaze clan, we are all of their betters. You wouldn't question us if we had you test on dogs or other animals, so why would you dare question us now? Perform the experiments, or we'll see to it that your petty wife is kept in some better company before we kill her all while you watch. Then they had their guards toss me out of their chambers. So to protect my wife I complied. Pretty soon a year went by, but not fast enough for me. And more I resented the clan as a whole as each day passed, wanting to take my wife and me away for this prison. The final straw was when my wife said she was pregnant. I so wanted to escape then, but the elders were keeping me under even more of a watchful eye. The only day I could get away was the day of my son's birth. My wife, my closest friend and assistant Tezai, and my wife's sister Kakako all knew the plan. Using the excuse of wanting an expert medical help, we left the compound for Kiri, and soon when we reached the port we headed for Haino Kuni. But all for the running we had done, it had sent my wife into labor. We reached Haino Kuni just in time for your father to be born as citizen of this county, and finally we were free of the oppressive elders. However, our freedom did not come without a price, as my wife of 2 years and best friend of over 15 years passed bring your father into the world. We gave her a proper burial and came to Konoha. I opened a ninja shop and a general store that I named after my wife Enko's supplies. And here is where your dad grew up, happy, carefree, without the whole clan war dictating his life. Everything was good until one day people from my past showed up at my shop. They were my old research partners Namikaze Kuratsuchi Mayuri and Namikaze Sosuke Aizen, both who I despised greatly. By then I was just going by Urahara Kisuke, but they found me still. They came to tell me that the clan knew I was here in Konoha and that I couldn't hide from the clan. Also that the clan knew about Minato and that his teammate Uzumaki Kushina wasn't a full-blooded Uzumaki. Her mother had been a Kazuma. They only knew this due to the fact that by the time they had shown themselves, your mother was one of the last few known Uzumakis. And for the longest time they had been trying to add Uzumaki bloodline and skills into the Namikaze, whose sealing ability far exceeded their own. The duo were threatening that they were going to be watching the pair and I to make sure the treaty was kept. Sadly, though, the most joyous time of your father's life, even then during the Third Ninja War, was when he married your mother, only seconded to when he found out she was pregnant with you. Now, thanks to the war at the time, your parents were under less of a close eye. However, that happiness was short-lived. By the time Kisuke had said all that he did, neither of the Namikaze could look at each other. Kisuke from his sorrow and guilt that had been built up over the years. Naruto from the anger, tears, confusion, joy, pain, the raging storm of emotions that laid within his mind. The oldest Sarutobi could only shake his head, already knowing the whole story and hating himself for not being strong enough to change it. While Irika just sat wide-eyed and slack-jawed in both amazement and disbelief at the actions of the Namikaze clan. Kisuke uses his hat to wipe away his tears before placing a hand on the Hokage's shoulder to gain his attention. Sarutobi-san, would you like for me to tell the next part, or you? The shopkeep asked with an undertone of sadness. The old leader's faces darkened even more with sadness, but rose to his feet, giving Kisuke a nod, and he moved from out in front of Naruto before the leader began. First off, Naruto. Naruto! Look at me, please, Sarutobi said, shaking the boy from his thoughts, bringing the boy's tear-filled eyes to meet his own. When Two's eyes met, the Hokage pulled out 2 items, holding them both up in both of his hands. Naruto, what is this? The man asked, holding out his item-filled left hand. A scroll, I guess, the boy's somber voice replied, causing the Hokage to nod and switch which hand he held out. And this? Naruto's teary eyes looked confused but answered anyway. It's a kunai. What's this? The Hokage held up his hand to stop the boy. Before his placed the scroll on the desk, unrolling it a bit and sealing the kunai within it. The next part confused the hell out of Naruto, and if this was a different time would have been laughing at the antics. For then the mighty and famous professor of shinobi picked up the scroll and began to poke, prod, and draw the scroll across the chest and arms of Kasuke, who was getting annoyed at Sarutobi for making a joke out of the situation. After about a minute of watching the old man's action, the youthful, "That's painful to write," boy jumped out of his seat yelling at his boss. "Old man, what the are you doing?" The old man in question was slightly taken back by the outbursts but played it off smoothly by replying, "What do you mean? You can't see that I'm trying to cut him with my kunai. He has hurt you. It's only right that I hurt him for you," he said, holding the scroll in front of the boy. "Surely this must be a kunai, just like the one I had before?" Naruto looked irritated. "Have you been skipping on your pills again, you old coot? That's just a small storage scroll with a kunai sealed in it." Kasuke was all smacked. He could not believe his ear at the smack talk from his grandson. The Hokage, still in his role, went on. "Are you absolutely sure it not a kunai?" Sarutobi asked, looking for a certain response, and fully received it, just not the way he thought. "What the ing monkey flinging shit is wrong with you, you senile old chimney? Just because you seal a kunai into a scroll don't make it no damn kunai. And you call yourself the professor?" Now all 3 of the older men were looking at the boy due to his colorful way with words. Shaking his shock off, the Hokage smiled a content smile. "Very good, you have just proven yourself to be smarter than 3/4 of the general population. Though I would have not preferred that string of insults with the answer I was looking for. I want you to remember what you said, and before I tell you why I had you answer those questions, I would like to say 2 things. One being, I'm dreadfully sorry for the life you have had to lead and that I was not strong enough to stop many things. And 2, this is not to say it right, but people fear what they can't understand, control, or that could be greater than themselves. And truly sad testament, but a person can be enlightened now people or the crowd is dumber than a tray of bricks. Now on October 10th, the day you were born, the Kyuubi had got free of its last prison, your mother. You see, when she was younger, your mother was found to have quite unique chakra. It was for that very reason she was brought to Konoha in the first place, to be the new Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi. Unknown to all but the highest ranks and the elders, the most powerful tailed beast has been in the procession of Konoha ever since the battle between the first and Madara, the old man says, shocking the youngest male within the room. To find out that ever since the very founding of the village, Kyuubi has been here the entire time. However, before the teen could ponder further on the subject, he heard the third continue on. It was the wife of the first Hokage, Uzumaki Mito, who first held the honor of containing the Kyuubi. Then, after nearly holding for nearly 70 years, she passed the title to your mother, who held it until the night of your birth, when something went wrong. For female Jinchuriki, their seals are at their weakest during childbirth, and some mysterious man wearing a one-eyed mask took full advantage of that fact. He threatened your life for the chance to get at your mother, and set free the beast that you know contain. The ninja of the village were doing our best to stop it. But we were like flies trying to kill a whale, no matter what we threw at the beast, it just kept on come. We were waiting, holding out until the fourth could finish his plan's details, Sarutobi says, as he moved around to the front of the desk, using his paws to take another puff of his pipe. Now thing with bijus that they cannot be killed, only stopped with sealing it away. But when dealing with a bijou over 5 tails, normal methods won't work, cause if you seal it in an inanimate object, the seal fails and you're back where you started. The container must have its own chakra system flowing through it, and its own will. And when you're dealing with the strongest of the bijou, your container lists short and even more. Why? Because for the fact that if you seal the Kyuubi into another animal, it will just overload the animal and again right back where you started. Only thing left is a human, but an adult's coils are already set, and if you seal it within one, only thing you would get would be an explosion big enough to level Konoha, and now it would take about 9 years, you'll be back where you start. Only thing that can truly hold back the fury of Kyuubi is the newborn coils have not fully developed, and that will grow, strengthening the seal each day, or an Uzumaki. And a Hokage's duty is to his people, and he, being a good leader, could not ask his men to perform an action they themselves are not willing to do. So taking his crying newborn son while he himself was crying, knowing that by the end of the day his son would not have either one of his parents to look after him. So hastily heading to the battlefield, the Yondaime gave his life to seal away the Kyuubi within his son. Taking another pause to let the information sink in, the elderly leader was actually trying to steel himself for the most hurtful part of this entire confession. Why on earth did the two of them just leave the poor teen to fend for himself? Feeling that he would never be truly ready to admit his sin against the teen with a clear head, the Hokage continued, "Now you would have had caregivers who would have raised you with love and care, had it not been for the greedy civilian council and my old power-hungry rival Shimura Danzo. In the short time between the death of your father and my being resworn in, the two teamed together for a political power play. With Danzo threatening to go and tell both the Kazuma and Namikaze about who and what you are if Kisuke didn't give you up. Playing on your grandfather's wish to keep you alive. All while the civilian council seized a lot of power before I was sworn back in as Hokage. The original plan was for your godfather was already performing his part of the plan the three of us made, where he, Jiraiya, would go out and make sure that both your father and mother's enemies abroad did not know about little old you, while maintaining Konoha's spy network. While Clogs here would raise you with me, making sure that your parents' internal enemies could not take advantage of you. However, we didn't count on them striking preemptively, forcing us into Plan B, placing a scrambler seal, absorption seal, and an annulment seal to make sure that the two main threats, those two clans, could not find you, and we would help you where we could, all the while playing chess using you as one of the pieces. For that we are sorry, but now all that changes." The old man finished, going from a depressed tone to rallying leaders one. Both Irika's and Naruto's eyes shot up, looking at the Hokage, who was wearing a truly devious grin upon his face, one that was sending chills down his, Irika, spine, for it reminded him of how Naruto looked right before he pulled off a major prank. Taking a long puff from his pipe, the leader began his rallying speech. "Naruto, how would you like to get revenge on the people who caused you not have a family, hurt you unjustly, who went out of their way to see you fall? How would you like the chance to strike back in a way that would make them wish that you had just went ahead and just killed them instead?" Naruto just stared curiously at the old man, causing the elder to smirk. "Well, take puff, the answer is simple. We make, no, we shape you, no. We breed you into being the perfect Hokage. We purposely train you up to be the straw that breaks the back of the greed and corruption camel that clouds our village. Now that you're a ninja and you have broke the annulment seals waking your bloodline, you have grown from being a pawn to a queen piece that is lodged deep in the enemy backfield, and your enemies are all coming at you with everything that they've got. You're going to need you hit them all back harder. If you let us, by the time we're done with you, you killing them would be like mercy. So will you let's help you by joining us and strike back at those who hurt you, all while saving the Leaf Village, building it to the level your parents wanted it to be?" the Hokage asked, holding out his hand in gesture. Naruto simply looked down at his feet for a few seconds, bobbing his head if he was saying yes within his mind, before looking up and grabbing the Hokage's hand with a darkened look in his eyes and a mischievous smirk. He was ready. So what's first? Naruto said, bringing smiles to elder men's faces from his answer, thinking that they and Naruto can finally start paying back the damn council and that fool Warhawk Danzo. "Well, before we can begin of our plans, we first need to do is have Clogs here perform a full Kekkei Genkai capability suri so we can see where your strengths lie. Then after that we set up your training schedules, where we will have Kisuke training you in your Kekkei Genki while Irika," the Hokage said, shocking the teacher. He was thinking that the others had forgotten he was there. He instantly stood up and looked to be in a dazed, like a deer in the headlights or a kid caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Me, Hokage-sama?" Irika stuttered out as the thought of why would they include me in their plans ran through his mind. The elder leader just simply chuckled at the young man's face before replying, "Hi, Irika-san, you are about to play a key role in our plot. We need you to first run interference for us at the academy by tomorrow, telling that there has been tampering with the grades of several of the students, and an investigation has been launched to find the culprits, and to sort out the new team placements, say about a month. The leader asked towards Kasuke, who seemed to mull it over for a few moments before nodding yes before the head ninja started again. So Naruto can have a chance to train in his Kekkei Genki, and so you can make sure that Naruto academic studies are up to par. We can't have an ignorant Hokage leading us now, can we? Hee. The boy in question simply just took this all in, his mind in a blurry haze from all of the new information he had received. Family, I finally know my family. I know that the old man lied to me, but I can't bring myself to hate them, any of them. Mom, Dad, what am I? Am I still a human, a wizard, or a demon? Now, Naruto was broken from his thoughts when he felt hands upon his shoulders. Looking up to see both of his Gigis standing in front of himself, each with an arm and hand stretched out and on his shoulders. Looking up at the old men as they both tried to keep up a smile, but in both of the men's minds they could feel that something was coming to them. Moreover, their feelings of dread were well placed when Naruto dropped his head down so that his yellow bangs hid away his eyes. With the only warning the two men saw was his mischievous grin. Before 3 seconds later they both were holding their abdomens and letting out a groan of pain in response to Naruto punching them there. Behind all of the Group 3 secret camouflage A and Bu, Moru, Mole, Subhaida, Spider, and Chameleon, appeared like specters ready to strike down the boy for daring to hit the leader of the Hidden Leaf. But a stern look from the Hokage sent them each back to their hiding places, Subhaida climbing backwards up the wall to the ceiling, fading from sight, Moru sipping back to where Naruto was first laying down at before sinking down into the floor, and Chameleon simply faded into nothingness. Once the 3 guardians were gone, the Hokage turned his back to the boy who was shaking like a leaf. That for lying to me for so long, Naruto said with a tremble in his voice, as if he was struggling to keep back the emotional storm that was building within. Wham! The elders were now holding their jaws from the strong jab that Naruto just gave the both of them. Despite them both being able to sense the blows coming and they flexing their muscles to defend against it, the hits still managed to surprise them with the sheer power behind them. And that was for letting those bastards get away with so many things. The boy finished before he shot forward, hugging both of the men around their necks for a few seconds. As the boy pulled back, he thought that the Gigis would have been mad that he had struck them. Nevertheless, they just smiled with an understanding, sagely look in their eyes. Iruka stared at the scene that looked to be as if it was something out of one of those touchy-feely flicks his sweetheart nurse over at the hospital would make him watch. And now he would deny it to his grave, he could not get enough of watching them, the movies. But he was reaching his limit, clearing his throat, causing the 3 other male to separate, all trying to act nonchalant. Well, Naruto, I am terribly sorry again for all the pain in your life. But let us make that stay in the past and let's start a new future, the Hokage said as Kasuke put his hand back on Naruto's shoulder, gaining his attention. Come Naruto, it's been a long day, and we have much to do. Come tomorrow, the shopkeep said, trying to lead Naruto away. Thou confusion set upon face, where are we going, he wondered. The Hokage nodded and began to usher everyone towards the door. Quickly the group left the office and soon they found themselves outside of the manor, with the Hokage saying good night and shutting the doors behind him. Iruka said he was going to head over to his girlfriend's house to apologize for their missed date, and he shined away. Shall we? The bucket hat man said as he began to walk off, with Naruto following a few seconds behind him. The pair walked down the main road toward the merchant district. Turning off the main street, they passed into the place nicknamed Shouter's Row, being the main thoroughfare into the district, home of some of the loudest shop criers in Konoha. It was odd for Naruto to walk down this street without hearing the cries of the keeps trying to get people to come in. Though in Naruto's case it was odd not to hear the criers yelling for him to stay away from their stores or them throwing things at him. However, the pair kept on moving through the closed-up storefronts past the merchant's circle's fountain to a small back-street plain-looking shop. To be truthful, the shop looked to be a bit run down, though a bit large for the area. Sliding open the door to a darkened shop floor, Kasuke leads Naruto to the back of the shop to a stairwell with 2 sets of stairs, one going down into a dark abyss, and the other which they now climbed leading up to the living quarters that were on the 3rd floor. Upon reaching the top of the flight of stairs, Kasuke instructed Naruto to continue down the hallway, and his room would be the first open door on the right, as the shopkeep opened the slide to his own room heading in. Some host. I thought that when you had a guest you're supposed to see them to their room? Naruto said to himself, annoyed at the fact that his lazy grandpa just left him in a hallway in a strange home. Letting a huff, he started down the hall just as he was told, finding the room just as the guy said. Walking in, he pulled off his ripped jacket top and removed his jumpsuit pants, leaving them on the floor whereas he pulled them off. Ducking into the futon that was prepared on the matted floor, he was asleep before his head had hit the pillow. For some reason, when he had walked into the room, he felt all of his strength drained away and wanted nothing more but just to get some sleep. Naruto's mindscape. When he fell asleep, Naruto opened his eyes to find himself standing upon a massive cloud back in the same infinite sky place where he had met that strange yet gorgeous and why woman who wanted him to say her name, even now it was the very first time they had ever met. Yet why did it feel like I had known her all my life? It's because I've been with you all of your life, he heard before he felt and saw two slim and gloved arms wrap around his neck, their owner gently breathing into his ear. The woman's sudden appearance surprised Naruto. Jumping away, he turned to face her, immediately noticing her change in apparel. She was now wearing a tight dark purple vest that just covered her bust, and it was held close only by two straps in the middle of her chest. Up under it was a short mesh shirt that was sleeveless and stopped right above her belly button. A pair of long black fingerless gloves, a tight hip-hugging skirt dark purple with black knee-high heel boots. The word slut quickly popped to Naruto's mind, but as soon as it did, the woman's face darkens in anger before commenting, "That's a rude thing to think about an ally/friend." Confusion abruptly set upon Naruto's face. How did she know what you're thinking, HM? It's because I've been with you all of your life, and here your mind is an open book to me just like mine is to you, Naruto, she replied, completing his thought, switching from an angered look back to a playful one. But you do have a point, this outfit is a little too revealing for a second date. Let me change into something a bit more comfortable. Hee, she said, snapping her fingers down by her side, causing a thin gray swirl of wind to appear at her feet around her. As it quickly rose to her head, it changed her outfit with it. Changing her knee-high boots to a pair of boots stopping just under the knee, they black in color, open-toed as most of the ninja footwear, and heeled. At the same time making a long flowing and plain brown-colored left-side silted skirt. When it climbed up to her upper thigh, a pair of black fishnet shorts appeared under the brown skirt, stopping at her waist. Taking over was a tuft of white fur going around her waist that was the bottom to a blue off-the-shoulder kimono-like top, which barely was on her bust, with white tufts of fur going around her upper arms and lining the flap sides. A brown girdle snugly held the kimono closed. Covering her near open chest area and shoulders was a mesh shirt that crawled up her neck a bit. All of the changes happened in the span of seconds, but to Naruto it was like a frame-by-frame video viewing. Now that's better, no? She asked, snapping Naruto from the staring contest he was having with her body. She let out a light giggle in response to boy's antics. Her platinum hair flowed in the wind as she walked towards him. When she was close enough, she bent over, placing her left hand on her knee, giving the boy a good look down into the Forbidden Valley. Gee, Naruto, you're ogling me kind of hard there, he. You think you can tame this whirlwind? She commented in a teasing way before she stood back upright. Nearly instantly Naruto notices that her height had changed. She looked like she had shot up about a foot and a few inches, making her at least 6 foot something. Looked down at Naruto, she could see his mind churning for answers. A smirk appeared on her face. You're wondering what you are doing here, right? Naruto, not trusting his voice, nodded. Well, you're here because you require, and I need to talk to you because if we are to be partners, it would help if you knew who you were partnering with. You understand? She asked, holding out the first and last words, receiving a nod for answer before she started her intro. Well, as you know, my name is Kazagafuku, and I am the embodiment of the wind and skies. The temptress and tempest of the air, the real hurricane of the clouds. I can be as smooth, relaxing, gentle, calming and playful as a light breeze, or as mad, angered, chaotic, and wild as a raging storm. I am a woman after all, the spirit of the wind. As to where this is my home, my realm of your soulscape. As you can see, I love wide open spaces. There is nothing vaster and open on this planet than the skies, don't ya think? Endless freedom and room, how I love it. Now why we're here is because your body is currently undergoing the first part of your bloodline testing, where they are checking your subconscious power levels, performing full body scans, checking your chakra pools, all while giving the tested chance to meet and learn about their partners. And as to what I am, Kaze paused, looking over her shoulder, a look of annoyance growing upon her face, as she soon turned back around to finish her thoughts. As I was saying, what I am is a female wind draconian spirit that is also the very sword that is resting on your right shoulder. A reflection of your wind-like self, playful 1 minute and serious the next, she said, pointing to the new sword that had just appeared over Naruto's shoulder, shocking him. When did that get there and how? He thought. It appeared because I willed it to. Because I believe that you are worthy enough to weld me, and because I can see that you will push the wind and skies past their known limits. I will. Kaze stopped again with an angered look now on her face as she balled up her fists, but before Naruto could ask what was wrong, a sudden bright flash accrued, engulfing the two. When the light died out a few seconds later, the pair now found themselves in a new location. They were now standing in the middle of a large, brightly lit, and odd metropolis city. Odd due to the fact that cities like this one no longer existed, and the closest thing to it was Amigekyo no Sato. Nevertheless, back to the matter at hand, the city was filled with towering windowed skyscrapers that were so high that when Naruto looked over the side of the building he could not see the ground below. Bright neon signs, billboards and screens lined the siding of the tall buildings, 100 spotlights searching the cloudy skies. Naruto figured that just one of the buildings here electric bill were 10 times the amount of all of the bills in Konoha combined. As Naruto looked around from the top of the skyscraper Kaze and his self-occupied, he was amazed the liveliness of the area. It was like the city never slept, never grew tired, always chaotic and happening. This was his kind of place, but Kazagafuku just sat in the middle of the roof, arms folded, and eyes narrowed in anger. She did not enjoy this place and especially did not care for the inhibitor of this realm. Hoping that they wouldn't show their face until she found a way back to her home. But alas, her wish was for naught. Yehhhhhhhhh. The duo heard echo between the building. The voice sounded real rough to their ears. Naruto dropped into a defensive stance, not knowing what the voice was from, while Kazagafuku stood to her feet calmly while rolling her eyes. This is one of the reasons I can't stand this fool always showing off, she said mentally. Yee-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Naruto, ready to fight, saw something looking like a lightning bolt shoot between two buildings in the distance. He goes to pull his new sword to defend Kaze and himself, only find that it no longer there. Already forming the question in his mind to ask Kaze, she beat him to the punch. You won't be able to wield my sword form here unless the owner of this realm allows you to, she commented in a cold and angered tone that sent a chill down her partner's spine, giving her a quick glance over at. An even bigger chill of pure fright went down his spine as she walked up beside him. Her eyes had lost the flirty playfulness they once had, becoming darkened with anger and rage, as a whirlwind began at her feet, making her hair dance upward. All while she grinded her teeth and letting out a low snarl. Turning back to the area Naruto saw the bolt, he turned back just in time to see it again. Only this time it was much closer to the two, and it looked a lot larger and looked as if someone was riding upon it. However, thing that stuck in Naruto's mind the most is the fact that the lightning bolt was quickly coming at them. Www. They heard before the bolt shot straight into the building they were standing on. Suddenly the lights of the floor brightened before dimming back as the next floor brightens. The process continued as it climbed up the building, until finally when the top floor was reached the windows all burst out as several bolts out lightning shot from them arching upward the roof. They all came together into one bolt just before it shot down in the middle of the roof. What they heard the bolt say as it changed into a humanoid form, covered in a body-wrapping yellow glow. Suddenly the wrap burst off, revealing a humanoid figure that stood about 6 feet 3 inches with a lanky yet muscled build about them, looking like a male in his late teens, early 20s. His hair was a wild and untamed mess of blue and golden locks in a spiky afro. His ears were very pointed and long, while his eyes were electric blue in color and cat-like. His face made him look beastly in appearance, with 4 dark whisker marks on each of his cheeks, and 2 sharp fangs poked out from his top lip. Around his neck, he had a pair of black over-the-ear headphones. He wore a white beater undershirt with an open-buttoned short-sleeved shirt with the kanji for lightning and thunder all over it. Around his waist was belt that looked like electric guitar neck with a guitar head for a buckle that had the kanji for rock star upon it. Wearing a pair of tight jeans and topped with a set of Toby boots, the shoes that they were only like boots. He had a defiant and mischievous smirk on his face, and look in his eyes directed at Naruto that said, "Come on, kid. I dare you to fight me even though you stand no chance." Finally, I the most electricfyn cool cat there is has arrived. Ha 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 ha, the newcomer said in an oddly excited tone like he was cranked up on a 1,000 gallons of coffee, crack, sugar, and adrenaline all at once. It sort of scared Naruto a bit due to the look that the man had in his eyes. In a surge of lightning, the man teleporting next to Naruto in an instant, he began to give the boy a good looking over, teleporting all around him so he could see the boy much better. Finally, porting 3 feet away, he brought his up, crossing them across his chest. "Hey, not bad, kid. You look like a real live wire, yeah." "Ha! So you're the one that gets me, huh? In that case, you're in real good hands. In case you're wondering, I'm not yelling this is just the way I talk. And trust me, if I was yelling you'd know it," the feline-like man said with a cocky grin. Naruto couldn't tell if the guy was just crazy or what, though he was seriously leaning more toward the or what part. First I meet this hot dragon chick, now this insane cat guy. What's next, a purple dinosaur that sings and dances? The boy thought as the man turned to see Kazagafuku standing on the opposed side of the building. Quickly teleporting over, he starts in on her. "Ichiwai, look who it is." "It's Tsukima slut," he said, earning him a wind charge swipe from Kaze, only to miss when he teleported to her other side, smiling like crazy. "I've always wondered why do Y call Y self a lady, when Y suck for money I. HM? Ha 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 ha. Booty thought your kind always walked the streets and stayed on corners, so WH8 are you doing up here in DA penthouse? This ain't pretty woman. Oh wait, I get it, you wanna be one of my groupies, right? 'Kay, then I'll let you check my mic later, but right now back to the kid." The guy said each word, causing Kaze to twitch more and more until finally she just swung a wind-powered slash at him, but by the time she did he had already teleported away. She let a low growl in fury at the annoying antics of the male, though she was a prankster like her host and loved a good joke, either by her or about. This guy could get under her skin faster than anyone. Turning to look at the two males, she only could roll her eyes. With Naruto and the feline guy, well, all fun aside for now, let's get to the reason you're here, kid. YC, I am one of Y Zanpakuto's YC, but before I grant you my strength you have to earn it YHHH. 'Cause I only lend my strength to those who know how to party hard, man, who know how to get down, and who know how to have some fun. I got to know that you can hang with me, I gotta know that you know how to party like a rock star and rock out the show. Naruto looked confused at the man's statement, but the guy just smirked at the young male's bewilderment. "HEA, tell Y what kid'll show ya what I mean. What I mean is like this." Waning incoming song, key, rough deep voice, background lyrics, riffs or breaks. Sudden Naruto heard a guitar start to play as the man began to sing. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough now. I'm taking you down, taking you down. Down, interlude riff. You've been all up in my face, out of line and out of place, blurring views, distorting facts. Every time I turn my back, I'll make you know your position. Don't talk, just shut up and listen. No way out now, you can't play dumb. Get up and come get some. Coco come get some. Coco come get some. Coco come get some. Come get some. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough now. I'm taking you down, taking you down. Down, I feel the hate that you breed. It's the fix that feeds your greed. Set your bait, set your trap. Take a seat and watch me snap. I'll shake the ground that you stand on. I'll still be here when you're long gone. This world is mine, you can't have it. It's my turn to burn and wreak havoc. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. Down, down, down. I'll take you down, down. I'll take you down, down. I'll take you down. Intermission riff. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you down. I've had enough. I'm taking you down, taking you downnnnnnnnnnnn. And the man finished with a grin and a finger pointed at Naruto, who was currently slack-jawed at what just happened. The man just chuckled at the odd face of the kid. Putting his hands on his hips, he clears his throat to wake the boy from his daze. Naruto shakes his head, focusing his mind. Like that kid, make me feel your soul in it, huh? I'll give ya a sec to figure out what I mean. And it you get it, just think it, and it'll happen, the singer said, letting the boy ponder the meaning of his words. He said he wanted to see if I could hang with him. Then he said he wanted to see if I could party like a rock star, and rock out the show. Then add the fact that he sung a rock song and afterwards told me that he want to feel my soul. So I'm guessing that he want to hear me sing, and it has to be a song from my heart. I got the perfect thing for him, Naruto thought before he stepped to the middle of the roof. Putting his head down, he took a deep breath as an electric guitar began to play. Incoming song, key lyrics, if you feel so empty. The images of Naruto's past began to appear upon the bottoms of the clouds. The images of a 4-year-old Naruto, sitting cold and alone in between a stack of trash bags. So used up, so let down. If you feel so angry. The image of Sarutobi and Kasuke telling Naruto of their mistakes. So ripped off, so stepped on. The images of him being overcharged by store owner, and the faces of the civilian council appear. You're not the only one. Refusing to back down. The feeling of strength and stubbornness began to well up in him. You're not the only one, so get up. As the music began to build as he held the note until he stopped. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. He sang as he throwing his head back like he was screaming to the heavens. The man just smirked. This boy's getting it, he thought as he watched the boy bob back and forth feeling the beat, and calming himself for the next verse. If you feel so filled so diartai, so it up. Images of Naruto living on the streets showed how no one would let him in when it rained, and how they beat him for something he had no control over. If you feel so walked on, so painful, so pissed off. The images of how most of his teachers took advantage of his ignorance, putting him down constantly. Of how some of his classmates like Sakura would take advantage of his good nature. Of how she beat him for liking her or being nice to her. Feeling the rage of her rejecting him for his kindness. You're not the only one. Refusing to go down. The feelings of even more anger built as he thought of people trying to put down all those he held precious to him, like Irika and Ai-san, Eminane-chan and her dad, Kasuchiji-san, Sarajij. You're not the only one, so get up. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Everybody. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. Let's start a riot, ARIOT. Let's start a riot. He screamed as thoughts of him bring about a change flooded his mind, and the man watching even joined in to scream the lyrics. Kaze stared at the duo partly as if they were fools and the rest in pride for Naruto, for letting out his feelings. Also because now her hated frenemy saw what she did the first time she met the boy, though she was now wished she had done something like this for her test. She had to admit that the two were good singers. End song. When the song ended, Naruto was gasping for air with his head down, as a jubilous feeling began to overtake him. He had never felt this good before. It was as if a weight had been lifted off his heart. Hearing the sound of the man, and Kaze clapping, he looked up to see the two standing in front of him, the man with his hand on his chin. Needs a little work but pass, kid. But now for the second and most important test out. We can have all the fun in the world if you know it. So what is it, huh? Tell me, can you hear it, kid? Can hear my truly electrifying name, shouted to the world. The man questioned in his normal way of speaking, and in an oddly small whispered voice Naruto heard. Sandakuraji, Naruto shouted out to the world, and the clouds in the sky began to crackle with lightning and roar with thunder. The man jumped with glee at the answer. Finally he would get to have some fun. Yeah! That's right, kiddo, the name's Sandakuraji. Let's shock and rock the world, Sanda said just before Naruto's vision went white. It has been 1 month since the scroll incident and Naruto moving into the Urahara shop. And as Naruto walked down the street, very few of the people recognized him. For the young teen, a lot of things changed over the past month. For one, the way he dressed. Having a grandfather who owned a ninja supply store had amazing benefits. He had traded in, burned to a crisp, his old jumpsuit for a new outfit. He now wore an opened white jacket with a black line around the collar and going down the sleeves, with a small clear armored mesh shirt and a dark orange shirt under it. To hide his bone mask he wore same colored jaw mask as his shirt. Over his right shoulder hung Kazagafuku in her katana-formed sheath connected to an old across-the-shoulder bag strap. Around his waist was a belt with the Uzumaki symbol for a buckle, and on his left side hung Sandakuraji in the form of a Wazkazi blade. His pants didn't change much except going for a darker orange and 2 large cargo-style pants pockets on each leg. Some of the young civilian girls would blush as he walked by, while the young kids marveled, saying how cool he looked. But still most of the adults looked at him with disdain. Only thing was the teen no longer care about what they thought. He was going to change all of their minds soon enough. For now he would just let them think what they wanted. Finding that he was no longer enjoying the scenic route, he decided to have some fun and show off one of the techniques he had learned last month. Taking one final step before disappearing in a blur of speed, everyone present who witnessed it were shocked. Living in a ninja village, they all knew of the Shunshin no Jutsu, but what they had just saw looked nothing like it. Half of the civilians who hated Naruto were now scared at the evil brat being able to move that fast, while the other were that the village prankster just preformed one of the fourth techniques. In a flash, Naruto was in front of the academy, and eagerly walked in. Climbing up to the second floor, he headed into his class, hopefully for the last time. As he walked in, a voice cried out to him, "Menacus, hey Naruto, this meeting is for graduates only." Naruto heard a lazy voice said, bringing his eyes to its owner, one of Naruto's old ditching buddies, Naruto Shikamaru. Naruto just grinned before saying, "Duh, I know that. Why do you think I'm here wearing a hide? HM?" the boy said, pointing to his bare forehead. Shika just looked at him before gaining the heart and energy to tell him, "Troublesome, Naruto, what headband?" he asked, gaining a look of confusion from Naruto before he felt his forehead. Suddenly Naruto's eyes widened before he shot off towards the open window on the other side of the classroom, jumping out and disappearing like before in a blur. The entire class stopped what they were doing. Half of them, how did the class dobe move faster than they've seen a lot of the older ninjas move, and the others were shocked by the prankster's new look and the swords he was carrying. 3 minutes later Naruto came back through to the doorway, panting down with a smile on his face. Hee, I knew I forgot something this morning," he said before walking up the stairwell for the desk. Seeing his past rival sitting in his normal seat, he instead opts for an open seat behind Shika and their friend Choji, lounging back against the next level of desks trying to catch a few more winks of sleep. Unfortunately, just when he was about to nod off the sleep's worst, 2 enemies walked in, the Banshee girls Haruno Sakura and Yamanaka Ino, the 2 loudest kunoichi in his class, probably in the entire village of Konoha. Letting out a sigh in displeasure due to the fact they're arguing over Sasuke. I hate Sasuke. But alas, he was too loud because Ino noticed him sitting by Shika and Choji. She became mesmerized by the new mystery he seemed had about him. Her sudden silence confused her argument partner. Tracing her former best friend's line of sight, she saw that Ino was staring at some blonde guy. Suddenly she realized just who he was, remembering that there were only 2 blondes in the entire class, Ino and Naruto. "What are you doing here? You failed!" the harpy screamed. Not even opening his eyes, he flicked the metal plate of his headband. Her reaction was to blush in embarrassment for noticing he had a hide on. Thinking that she was losing face with Sasuke, she recovered quickly, trying to get back her self-esteem by picking on her punching bag. "Well, what's with the new get-up, huh? No matter how hard you try, you'll never be as cool or hot as Sasuke Kayuin," she said to him, aiming to destroy his feelings. Unfortunately for Sakura, she was a month too late for that tactic to work on him. Suddenly a devious smirk dawned upon his face as a mischievous idea crossed his mind. Letting his chair fall over towards the aisle, he preformed his jutsu and appeared behind the 2 girls. When the chair hit the ground, Naruto was no longer there. Everyone looked confused, wondering where he had gone. Even Sasuke was intrigued. When suddenly the class heard a frightened shrill, and when they turned to see what it was, the class saw Sasuke flying away and crashing into the blackboard at the front of the classroom. Let's rewind. Mini Kisuke walks out with a mini chalkboard and explains. When Naruto's chair had hit the ground, he was already behind the girls. Giving Sakura's shoulder a tap, he asked her in her ear what was she looking at. She in return shrieks and punches at Naruto, only to find that the boy had substituted Sasuke for himself. And by the time she realized who she was about to hit, it was too late to stop. And with Sasuke dazed by the sudden change of place, didn't see the punch coming, thus having a pink banshee fist driven into his stomach. End of Urahara's corner. Back to the FIC. Sakura stood stunned at what she had just done while Naruto chilled out in his normal seat, feet on the desk, hands behind his head, leaning back and not caring the world. Until he suddenly felt the ki from multiple sources rolling his eyes at the fangirl's sorry levels of killer intent. They pounced, making a giant cloud of dust appear. When the dust began to set, the beaters screamed and frightened, for instead of Naruto being on the ground in pain, it was both Sakura and Sasuke groaning in agony. All while Naruto was seated back where he first was, with an amused grin plastered on his face. This was the scene that Iruka walked in on. Looking around and seeing the grin on Naruto, he felt it was best that he didn't ask lest he desire a major headache. So deciding to get the show on the road, the teacher used his patent-pending Okina Akuma no Atama no Jutsu. "Shut up and sit down," he said, and the class instantly reaction, doing just as he commanded except for the two that were in pain on the ground. Taking a deep breath, he began to address the class. "Welcome back, class. I want to start out by saying," pausing to look at Naruto, "Naruto, we don't use our allies for replacement jutsus," he said in a deadpan tone, before turned back to the full class. "Now, as you know, the Hokage postponed the team assignments due to allegations of grade tampering. I am proud to tell that the culprit has been found and dealt with, and now on to the assignments. Team 1. Skipping to Team 7. Team 7 Assault Squad members are Uchiha Sasuke, Inuzuka Kiba, and Harem Sakura. The three members all had different reactions. Sasuke looked pissed, thinking that the other would slow him down. Sakura was jumping for joy over getting her dream boy on her team. And Kiba and his pup just sulked at both being paired up with the loudest girl in class along with her boy toy, on top of not being paired with the young Hyuga girl he liked. Team 8 Recon Squad members are Sai, Abirame Shino, and Hyuga Hanabi. No one on the squad had any complaints, though with each of them some of the quietest of the class. That was quite understandable. Team 9 is still in circulation, so Team 10 Investigation and Retrieval Squad members are Nara Shikamaru, Yamanaka Ino, and Akimichi Chuji. The only one who had a problem was Ino, and that because she didn't want to be paired up Lazamaru and tubby boy Choji. It was team that was expected, as all three of their fathers were a team before she was born. As she thought about teams, Ino suddenly realized something. Iruka-sensei, we all have teams, but Naruto-kun, what will happen to him?" she asked in a sweet and truly concerned voice, surprising the entire class, but none more than Iruka and Naruto. Both of them raised an eyebrow at the question. However, before Iruka could answer, two others decided to chime in with their opinions. "HMP. I guess the Hokage realized that you were completely useless and didn't even bother to place you on a team. I guess you really are a dope," Sasuke said in his normal cocky tone, followed quickly by his number one fangirl. "Yeah, Iruka-sensei, what's going to happen to that loser anyway?" Sakura said angrily, still mad about what Naruto had done earlier to her and Sasuke. Iruka grinded his teeth in anger at the two. Not liking a comrade was one thing, but constantly and purposely bad-mouthing and putting them down was another. He was about to tear into the pair, but before he could even open his mouth, crash! Through the classroom's window with a loud bang, came a large bundle of cloth that put everyone on edge. The bundle bounced once, in between where the teacher's desk was and where Iruka stood by the blackboard, all before it suddenly exploded into a tarp that bound both it and Iruka to the blackboard. Not again, the poor teacher thought as he struggled against his newfound prison. While Iruka struggled to free himself from his prison, his students just stared at person who appeared from the tarp onto the desk. She had purplish hair done up in wild ponytail and light brown pupilless eyes. The woman looked to be in her mid to early 20s with quite the curvy body that she was quite proud of, judging by the way she dressed, as she wore only a trench coat over fitted mesh bodysuit that went from her neck down to her thighs that barely concealed her twins, and topped off her outfit with an orange miniskirt that hung a little lower on her hips to show the beginnings of the innermost part of her thighs. All in all, the woman had the looks of a temptress, and had the full intent of using it to her advantage in battle. On the tarp behind the woman it read, "Introducing the single, and why Sensei Mitarashi Anko," although no one in the class was paying the words any attention. As most of the male of the class were slightly drooling and most of the girls were either jealous of the woman's looks or shocked that she would wear such an outfit in public. "All right, which one of you gakis is Uzumaki Naruto?" the woman asked before Naruto stood up slowly, unsure if he should answer the crazy woman's question seeing as she just busted through the window. Upon seeing the teen stand up, the woman gets a devious smirk before she disappeared in a swirl of leaves, only to reappear next to Naruto as she grabs his shoulder suddenly. "You're coming with me, Gaki," she says before both she and the blonde disappeared in another swirl of leaves, leaving behind a very stunned class. Each of the students look at one another wondering what just happened, when suddenly the tarp rips and out falls the poor instructor in a heap. Pulling himself to his feet, he shakes loose the cobwebs and looks to his students with contempt, wondering why didn't any of them jump in and get him down. As he looked over the class, he quickly noticed someone was missing. Well, two someones: the person responsible for pinning him to the wall, and the class's resident prankster. "Damn it, Anko, you weren't supposed to pick up the students until after lunch," the teacher thought to himself, knowing the nature of his ex-girlfriend all too well, and remembering her brash impulsiveness was one of the factors in why they had broken up. Shaking his head, the teacher informed the rest of the class that their new senseis will be here after lunch to get them, all before leaving the student to their own devices, and completely forgetting to reprimand Sasuke and Sakura. Although he also forgot to mention to the two and Kiba that they should take a longer lunch due to their new sensei's habit of showing up late. Jump to Training Ground 43. Training Ground 43 was a very dark and dense forest that few ever used or even visited. Many feared this place due to it being the closest training area to the dreaded Training 44, or as it was commonly known to the locals, the Forest of Death. There had been many of reports the dangerous creatures of the Forest of Death being seen within this adjacent training area. Creatures that were known to put Jonin on edge and mere Chunin would be challenged by. It was here that the sensei and student appeared in a small clearing. With the second the pair had landed, the teacher released the blonde teen. Naruto stumbled slightly due to the abrupt stop, but was quite used to the speed associated with the shunshin technique, as it was a slight down step from one of the clan techniques his grandfather had taught him over the break. Looking towards the woman who had just kidnapped him, he saw she had a look of disappointment on her face. "Huh, that's odd. Normally newbies like you lose their lunch from moving at such high speeds," she says, letting some of the disappointment from her face seep into her voice. While giving her a strange look, the teen jumps away facing the woman while grabbed on to the hilt of Sanda. "Alright, you crazy lady, just why in the hell did you kidnap me?" Naruto asks, ready to draw Sanda if she gave an answer he didn't like. The older woman simply smirked at the boy, before she suddenly threw a kunai at him. Seeing the incoming danger, the blonde quickly drew Sanda from his sheath and deflected the knife with ease. However, the rookie just as quickly discovered that the attack was a distraction, as he suddenly felt a pair of boobs pressing against his back, a cut above his mask, and an arm wrapped around his neck with a kunai pointed at his face. A tongue licks the blood that dripped out before its owner spoke. My Naruto-chan, aren't you tasty?" she said before taking another long lick of the wound, further freaking out the teen. "And for your information, the correct term is either sensei, Anko sensei, or if you're feeling adventurous, mistress," Anko says, only adding fuel to the fire. That was the disturbing feelings that were currently occupying Naruto's mind. Wanting to try and escape his so-called sensei, the teen tried to make a move, only to feel the coldness of the blade's point at his neck. "Now, you weren't thinking about running away, were you?" And without even meeting the rest of our little team, she says, feigning to be hurt that he wanted to escape her, but all the while enjoying watching her newest student squirm for her antics. As the teen's mind raced to find a way to escape, a thought occurred, although it was more on the lines of what she had just said, finally clicking in his mind. Wait, did she just say team? As in a team of people just like her? But before the teen could try and think about escaping again, the sound of clashing metal reached his ears, and Naruto quickly looked to where it came from. Suddenly a young woman with long black hair done in a ponytail appears, sliding backward into the other end of the clearing from the treetops with a kodachi in her right hand and her other hand on another one that sat over her tailbone. She was wearing an ordinate white GI top with gold-colored edges held closed by a purple obi, with a pair of hip-hugging short shorts underneath. She also had on a pair of purple knee-covering shin guards with the typical ninja Toby shoes. The young Kunoichi stared intensity back from where she had came, before she jumped back to avoid a horizontal slash from her opponent. Her attacker was another young woman, only she had flowing indigo hair that appeared from the brush with a determined look on her face. The indigo-haired girl would not relent as she followed up the slash of her first saber with a quick thrust of her left saber. The GI-wearing young woman parried the thrust with ease, only to find herself having to dodge a sudden multitude of rapid thrusts. The girl was forced backward as she tried to parry, block and dodge the onslaught. She was even forced to bring out her other blade to try and help. However, the fight came to an end when the indigo-haired woman shouted, "Take this hack, Saratabu Suryoku!" The woman shouts as she suddenly stops her rapid thrusting and charges chakra in her right arm before she flung her arm forward, causing the chakra to thrust into the girl she was fighting. The attack sent the black-haired Kodachi wielder backward into a tree that was behind her hard enough to cause her toe blades to fly out of her hands. As she slid down the tree in a slump, all she could think about was the pain in her back. Although when she felt the tip of a saber against her neck, the woman was forced to admit defeat with a displeased sigh. "Hey, you two, front and center!" The pair of female warriors hear as they both turn and see Anko standing at the other end of the glade, arm wrapped around someone, looking to be holding them by knife point. Both women raised an eyebrow at the antics of the snake user, as they both couldn't help but wonder just who has pissed her off now. The saber user helped the Kodachi wielder to her feet, before the pair began to cross the area. Within a few seconds the women stood in front of Naruto and Anko, and Naruto was pleasantly shocked to see the women. The black-haired woman had a quite young and rather attractive heart-shaped face with pouty lips. Her dark chocolate-colored eyes seemed to glare at Naruto for a reason the boy could not place. She had her headband tied like most around her head with a band of her hair framing each side. Although the thing that truly stood out to the young male was the lustrous curves she possessed, especially her near double D-cup chest, while the other woman had a more rounder type face, though she was just as young and attractive as the first woman. She had pale skin with lavender moons for eyes and seemed to radiate an air of regality. She wore a pair of light purple hip-hugging capris, a lavender-colored jacket that she had open, and a black tube top that showed off both her fit midsection and her ample bust. In fact, it seemed all of the ladies present were quite top-heavy in the male's opinion, not that he would ever complain. Although Naruto was having a bit of an issue in trying not to both not stare dumbly at their chest and keep a certain body part of his from reacting. "So I see you two found a way to pass the time while I was gone. So what was the bet this time?" the snake woman says, catching the attention of the lone male. A most welcome distraction from the pervy thoughts that were trying to enter his head. The teen may have invented a jutsu to catch perverts off guard. However, in truth, Naruto had always been taught that women did not suffer perverts lightly, and kunoichi were known to be quite violent towards them. Our standard wager: loser buys winner her favorite dish and as much as she wants. "Although sensei, I am more curious as to why do you have him at knife point?" the moon-eyed girl asked the older woman, and while this wasn't the first time of the teacher randomly showing up to team meeting with someone like this, the teacher typically had a reason for doing so, the key word being typically. And as if somehow she had forgot she was holding Naruto in such a way, she looked down and realized that she still had her knife to him. Simply removing her arm, the teen suddenly jumped away from, in his opinion, crazed woman. Turning to face the three femme fatale, the lone male needed some answers. "Okay, can someone tell me what the hell is going on, Databeo?" he says before quickly covering his mouth, ashamed that after a month of not saying it his verbal tic had come back. The three women had different reactions to the sudden verbal tic. The indigo hair one thought it was quite cute and tried to hide her giggles with her hand. Anko, on the other hand, looked truly amused at the teen with a mischievous smirk on her face. And finally the black-haired beauty simply looked at the male with disdain. Seeing that young man looked about ready to fight his way out of here at any given moment, the sensei figured she had had her fun for now. "Alright Gaki, my name is Mitarashi Anko and I'm your sensei. These two are your new YS teammates," she says with more than a bit of pride. After all, they were her first students, and they were some of the best genin that Konoha had to offer. Although Naruto was having a bit of conflicted feeling about being told that these two women were his teammates. While part of him was excited about having strong, capable, and outright gorgeous females by his side for missions, a small part of him was a bit worried that despite how why he found them, they were just as off their rockers as the sensei of the team. However, the longer he stared at the women, the more that part of his mind was being silenced by both the rest of his brain and his little head. Enko turned to the women and spoke. "Alright, girlies, give the gaki the rundown about yourselves," the woman says, causing the two other females to look at one another. With mere looks the pair decide who would go first, and seeing the glare in the eyes of her original teammate, the play-skinned girl figured she might as well start things off. "Hello, I am Hyuga Hinata, and I believe you were in the class with my younger cousin Hanabi," she says, causing the boy to realize part of the reason why in the back of he thought she looked familiar to him. While the teen had improved quite a good deal, he still needed a lot of work on paying attention to detail. Like the fact that the girl before him looked similar to his classmate, and not just because of their eyes. Before he could dwell further on the subject, Hinata began to speak again. "Anyway, I am 14 and the daughter of the current clan head, although..." Hinata paused again before shaking the thoughts from her head and continuing. "Never mind that, I am a second-year genin and had a three-way tie with Taki-chan here and our other friend Tenten-chan for Kunoichi of the year. My likes are flower pressing, cinnamon rolls, dancing, being with friends, Hanabi-ne-chan, my mother, moonlit nights, and a few other things. My dislikes are the way my clan acts, people who hurt others especially for no reason, my twin brother when he acts like our father, and I absolutely hate when some takes and eats my cinnamon buns. My dream is to prove myself worthy enough to be the next head of my clan and change the ways of my family," the heiress finished, in her normal sweet voice and with a sincere smile. While Naruto was digesting the information, a few things crossed his mind. So it really is her from that day. I may have to speak to her later on about that. But wait, she looks like that and she only 14. Dear Cammy, I wonder how she look a couple of years from now. The young man thinks to himself, finally realizing the other part of why did the Hyuga look familiar to him. A few years before, some boys were messing with a young girl and Naruto, not liking to see people bullied, tried to step in and help. And after doing so well at first, the young outcast found himself getting beat down upon. Thankfully, a young Hyuga girl had been walking by and jumped into the fray, helping Naruto to turn the tide of the battle. After the other boys had run away, the bruised Naruto asked why did she help him and the other girl. And Hinata responded with that she, like him, hated to see people being picked on, before she went on home. With the memory on his mind, Naruto almost missed Hinata nudging the other girl to go. And with a bitter look and a roll of her eyes, the girl began. "My name is Uchiha Takiheim, but you are to call me Taki, not Taki-chan, or Takiheim, got it? I'm 15, my likes are training and becoming stronger. My dislikes are males who leer at me or that are weak, fangirls and boys, men that hit on me, and women who make Kunoichi seem weak or make us seem like just slutty eye candy. Hobbies none of your business, and my dreams. All you need to know is that I one day hope to prove myself stronger than my mother and make my home village proud," Taki says with contempt, as she didn't really want to reveal any information to Naruto. In fact, she really didn't want him here. He was an outsider here, just another typical man intruding upon a woman's sanctuary. Her all-female team had now been invaded by this weakling. Something had to be done about this, in her opinion. Meanwhile, Naruto was quite confused and all by her last name, Uchiha. Ever since the night of the Uchiha massacre, all the village could talk about was how Sasuke team was the last Uchiha. All of the girls in class doting over how lonely the bastard was. And now, hearing about another Uchiha being around, the teen couldn't help but wonder why no one talked about this Uchiha. However, before Naruto could ask about the subject, the team's sensei decided to speak. "Okay, now it's your turn, Gaki, name, age, you know the works," Enko said, pointing to Naruto, who had to pause for a few moments to gather his thoughts before he spoke. "Okay then, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, I'm 13, my likes are ramen of all kinds except leek-flavored, pulling pranks, trying different and new flavors of ramen, training, Uraharajiji, Sarajiji, Sanda and Ai-san, Kazeheim, jutsus, fighting, music, and coming up with new inventions with Uraharajiji, and sometimes watching them blow up in his face, haha. Hates, well, for one, the way my life was before, the way I sometimes treated, being lied to, when people pick on those weaker than themselves, the time it takes for ramen to cook, people who don't try to understand things that are different. My dream is to change the views most the people have about me, learn all I can about my parents, and make them proud by becoming the greatest Hokage ever. He ended with a shout, clenching his fist, his eyes filled with determination and fire. Then a question hit him. So wait, why am I being placed on a second-year team? He asked innocently, as he wondering why would the old man put him on an older team. Most of them tended to run at much higher pace than that of a fresh genin could hope to keep up with. And while it wasn't an uncommon practice, most leaders would want to give their fresh soldiers time to adjust to the new lifestyle of missions and putting their lives on the line for their village. Well, I'm glad you noticed and asked, Anko says as she began taking a few steps towards the boy, placing her hands on her hips. You see, the old man feels that you have a unique skill set that would be a great fit to this team. Like your ability to prank the Imbu and escape while not even a full ninja, or the ability to paint the Hokage monument in broad daylight without getting caught until after you were finished. The woman finishes, drawing a look of curiosity from the two girls. They had just come back from a C rank mission, only to find odd-looking doodles on the monument. Now to hear that the supposed culprit was this newbie who wasn't even caught until after the fact. And as rumor had it, that it took nearly 30 minutes to catch the person. For the two young ladies this was all a bit unbelievable, and the looks on their faces further proved the point. And when the eldest ninja on the scene saw this, she simply smiled, knowing that they had played right into what she had planned. Very good girls, you're skeptical, which is why tomorrow the four of us are going to have a little test, Anko says with a devious smirk on her face, a smirk that the girls knew all too well. A look that meant she was about to put them through hell. So that means that tomorrow bright and early we are going to start our all-day test from sunup to sunup of the next day, 24 hours of pure unadulterated hell with 3 of Konoha's most sadistic kunoichis. She finished as she and the other two young women began to emit ki directed at him, trying drive home the point of be very afraid. But Naruto just shrugged it off like it was nothing. Instead he was trying to remember what Urahara had told him to tell his sensei. Running his hand up his left hip he pushes against the scroll Kisuk had given him for his teacher. Pulling the rolled-up message from its holder he tosses it over to Anko, who catches it single-handed. Impressive, the kid not only shrugged off our killer intent but still had the full mental capability to keep functioning normally. He's already ahead of half of the other candidates I was sent before HM. What is this? Dear Sensei-sen, please come by the Urahara shop after your team meeting so we can discuss important information. Signed, Urahara Kisuk. That crazy fool, what does he want? Anko thought, confused why one of her drinking buddies sent her a message by this kid. Shrugging her shoulders she decides just to go see the insane shopkeep. Besides, she was running low on supplies anyway. Hey Gaki, what's with the scrolled message? She asked. The boy simply shrugged and replied, Don't know. Right before I left this morning Gigi handed me that to give to my sensei. Letting the information sink in for a sec she suddenly realized just what he said. Wait, Anko shouted with an eyebrow raised and a tad bit of confusion. Kisuk is your grandfather? That crazy blonde shopkeep is related to you. I didn't even know he had a kid, let alone a grandkid. The snake charmer stated, trying to wrap her head around a mini version of her favorite and insane store owner being on her team. Before she wasn't worried, but now maybe she should go see the old guy. 'Cause whenever something involves Urahara, you can expect the unexpected and chaos to ensue. Only to drop from her thoughts when she heard her newest student speak once more. Well, yeah, he's my grandfather on my father's side, and one of the few relatives of mine who doesn't want me dead, he said, getting confused looks from all three females. But before either of the younger girls could ask what he meant, Anko had decided she had heard enough and needed to do some investigating into her newest charge. Dismissing the meeting after telling her students to come back early in the morning, the trio of women all leave in a swirl of leaves, leaving the lone male of the team to himself. A mischievous, devious smirk appeared on his face. Oh, how he couldn't wait to show off tomorrow. Time skip. The next day, 6 a.m., a chilling breeze blew across Training Ground 43 as dawn began to break upon the dense forest. This was the scene Hinata arrived to, looking as she had the day before. She always enjoyed this time of day. It was quite a relaxing reprieve for her hectic life as an heiress of one of the village's most powerful clans. The constant political fighting, bickering, and backstabbing really worked her nerves. Why couldn't they act like a real family? She often pondered the question when she was alone. Alas, before she could ponder any further, a newcomer arrives, pulling her from her thoughts. Takehime Uchiha, the eldest of the Uchiha Genin, and one of the 3 last loyal Uchihas. While Sasuke was the only male left, Taki and her mother were the last 2 females left. Both absent during the massacre due to her mother acting as the Konoha ambassador to Hai no Kuni's Amazon village star. Because she had spent most of her childhood growing up in a women-only village, some of the older and bitterer women warriors' views and beliefs had rubbed off on her. Ones like thinking all males are pervy pig-headed deviants, who live just to prey on women and try to force their domination upon their gender, even when or if the said male is far weaker than they were. With these kinds of thoughts being put into her head as a child, it was no wonder she didn't care for nor held any respect towards males, especially weak ones. So when she heard that a fresh from the academy, weak little boy had been placed on her team, she was a little more than just heated. No, she was full-blown pissed. So pissed off, in fact, she stormed into the Hokage's office and began to yell at the man for his actions, spouting off about how he was now trying to put her femme-fatale team back under his thumb, because he was scared of how strong they were without a male help, and needed a male there to put them back in their place. Now while she was fussing, the Hokage just sat there looking at her the entire time. His Umbu guards wondered why their leader was just sitting and taking all this bullshit from a Uchiha Genin. Finally, when Taki had to catch her breath from a 9-minute-long pure yelling spree, she tried to stare down the old man. "Are you done, Takehime-chan?" the third asked in unexpected tone, for someone who should very well be upset at the young lady. Receiving a slight nod from the angry Uchiha princess, suddenly the entire room felt it was hard to breathe and their bodies felt as if gravity was crushing them, Umbu included. Why, you may ask? From the sheer amount and intensity of killer intent being blasted from the elderly man still seated with a smile that never left his face. Changing from a room-filling effect, the wise leader slow drew the blunt of his ki from back behind his chair, drawing in down on the misguided girl. As the force slow came off of them, they all had the same thought, that's why, while they felt relieved they were free, pride in the incredible strength of their leader, and a few felt sorry for the clueless girl now under the full weight of his awesomeness. Taki, of the other hand, was now being forced and held to the ground by full intensity coming from the old man. Even while she was crushed, she was still mad, for the very way she was being pinned was in on knees bowing down type deal. She struggled to get free, but the more she did the heavier the pressure became, like a boa constricting its prey. It was as if the Hokage could feel her trying to get back up, and was putting his foot on her back to keep her down. And when the full weight of all the intent came upon her, she felt her heart skipping beats. And not in the lovey-dovey way. Just like the intent blasted out of the blue, it disappeared in the same sudden manner. Feeling weight finally lifted, she found herself still unable to get up. Rising from his chair, the leader made his way around his desk and walked over to the kneeling girl still in the doorway. Standing over Taki, he looked down in a "Did you really just do that" manner. Taking a draw from his pipe, he finally addressed her. "Now, Puff, just who are you yelling at like that, young lady? Have you lost your mind? Do I need to send out search parties of genin to go find it for you? Because surely forgotten it somewhere, that has to be the reason," the elder said in an "Are you serious" tone. The guard were trying to keep straight faces, but most were failing to. Few let a snicker slip out. "Surely you didn't think barging into your sworn leader's office, talking down to them as if they were below you, and calling my orders a how did you put it a great offense against women, and you should be ashamed and removed from your office. You didn't really think that was a smart idea, did you, Puff? So I'm just going to chalk this whole thing up to being a prank that failed and assume that you were just telling me a horrible joke." "Takehime-chan, okay, lil missy," Sarutobi said as he reached down to pick up the girl's head with a single finger. As she felt her chin rise, the weight seemed to vanish, as the man helped her to her feet. She in all her life had never felt anything like what had just happened. Poor Taki, while she noted he kept calling her by her full name, which she hated for anyone to do, she could only stare at the famed shinobi professor in both reverence and complete and utter fear of the man before. The truly scary part to her was he had done all that, and had that never left his face. It made her think he could do all that when he wasn't angry. She never wanted to see him get actually mad. With that he ushered her out the office, and rushed home to change her undergarments, as she had complete soaked herself after that. Brushing off the bad memory, she still felt contempt for the course of events. All she could do now is wait for the newbie to prove himself inferior, and they can go back to their all-Kunoichi team. As she walked up she saw that the bane of all her current problems was walking up after her. "You're late, sensei," said Daybreak, she said in a frigid tone, giving a matching glare with it. Naruto only smirked at her statement, knowing he had done nothing wrong. "There are a couple things wrong with what you just said," he remarked as he walked over to where the Hyuga heiress stood. "Okay, first, she didn't give an exact time to be here, she just be here early. Secondly, how do you think you can talk about me being late when you showed up around when I arrived? Third thing is, I have been here since midnight, I camped out. Lastly, what the is with you acting like a complete bitch? Is it me or is it an Uchiha thing? Because Sasuke seems to act like he has a pole shoved up his ass as well," the lone male said in a cocky manner. That only poured gas on the already blazing inferno of the heated female Uchiha. Hinata let out a gasp at the boy's words, seeing as it was rare for someone their age to call her out on her attitude. The fact of the matter was, she knew after years of training along with her bestie, it was about to get ugly and fast between her teammates, preparing to have to jump in and stop them from killing each other. But before she or the other two could act, suddenly a kunai sails by the blonde, intended to cut his cheek had he not tilted out of the way. All three genin searched for the source of the projectile, when Naruto felt a pair of boobs pressing against his back and a cut above his mask. A tongue licks the blood that dripped out. At first Naruto was a little freaked, but that subsided when he realized who it really was. Although it was still a bit weird, seeing as his sensei was currently violating the whole teacher-student thing of not molesting another once. But then again, he had a set of tits pressed up against his back, so who cares about that crap? You taste pretty good, Naruto-chan, and feel just as good, the sensei of team, as she unwrapped herself from her alone male charge. Thinking that his day and teacher could get any weirder, he was quickly proven wrong when his actually turned upside down. Why, you may ask? Because 4 snakes flew out of Anko's jacket and wrapped themselves around his legs and arms, picking him up and hung him like he was a possum. Naruto-chan, be a good little student and tell your Y and single sensei just what the hell is going on, pretty please, Anko said in a voice so sweet it scared him to the core. While her older students' sweat dropped at their sensei's crazy antics, to most, seeing your sensei hang someone upside down for no apparent reason would be odd sight. But unfortunately for them, it was just a normal day with a mentally off instructor. "Ano, Anko-sensei, what exactly are you talking about?" the lovely Hyuga heiress asked, trying to figure out just what set off the dango mistress this time. Not that there actually needed to be reason for Anko to go off the deep end, but it was always nice to know what to avoid in the future. "Well, Hina-chan, you see, I had a little meeting yesterday with our fearless and old leader and Naruto-chan's here grandpappy," the snake charmer said in a voice normally reserved for talking to small children. Taki hated whenever Anko used it. Her eye always twitched in annoyance. Anko knew this and did it whenever she could. Upon seeing the eye twitch, she simile and continued her tale. "You see, they called me there to see if I was going to have some kind of skill examination for our newbie here. Now when I said yes, they told me that due to certain reasons I was not to hold it until a time where the Hokage himself could oversee it." The female genin had strange looks after hearing that, but both had the same thought. Why would the Hokage be required personally for a test? But Anko wasn't done yet, there was more. "So until then us, meaning me and you too as well, are not to engage in any type of combat or physical confrontation against our new friend here, or risk being forced the worst and dirtiest D-ranks there are for the next 5 years without pay," Anko told, and their reaction was the same. "What?" they shouted, outraged by the information. Being that their squad specialized in combat and sabotage, the news was like telling Guy that he couldn't wear green anymore nor work out in any form. And anyone who ever met the crazy and strong Jonin even once knew for a fact that was impossible for him to do. Now the girls really wanted answers about their new teammate. Turning her attention back to her hanging student, a twisted smile that surely promised lots of pain. "Now back to you, my cute newbie. Tell me what is going on. And why I don't get to use you like a punching bag, the somewhat peeved teacher asked for the last time the nice way, before she would just do it her normal way. Torture. She was kind of hoping to be able to do it her way. Naruto, not knowing what he could say without telling an S-class secret, a secret that requires death as the punishment for breaking it. So he kept quiet, and with his silence he sealed his fate in the eyes of the snake user. But before she could get a chance to have her fun, a voice well known to the ninja called out, "He behind, please stop threatening the boy. He was for once following order higher than your pay grade." Everyone turned to see the third with two others flanking behind him coming towards them. Both of the two following the Hokage. Anko knew one as a friend and the other as the guy who was plowing said friend. The sword-wielding couple, her friend Yuzuki Yugao and her friend Driller Gecko Hate. Although strangely today they were missing the trademark of their coupling, their swords. Replaced today by Bakken practice swords. If you would put the lad down, I'll explain everything. Naruto just smirked. Biju thoughts, get me out of here. Hello fans out there, I've returned. It's been a while since you have heard from me, but rest easy knowing I'm alive. Sorry. Anywho, I finally put this damn chapter up after so long of trying to work on it. But a lot of things have been happening since last time and I had to put this on back burner. But now I have time once more to write away. Also, please note the change in the writing key. Because I wish to show just how loud Sanda is over a normal person yelling, I've decided to put the parts where he's even louder than just yelling in bold. Hopefully that will work out better. Now it is time to answer reviews and questions. First up, Belric, I checked and there are a few ways to write and say sky. It all depends on the context of how used and what the sentence is saying. But thanks for looking out, thou. To Adgo714, thank you for point that out, thou. I could have done with the email on top of it telling me the same thing. But truly, I do appreciate the heads up, and if you want, I am still looking a beta if you want. And if not a full-time beta, if you would be a great help if you just kept me on my toes and make sure I don't screw up whenever you read this story down the line. To Naruhina Lover 20, first off, great name. Hell yeah, all day every day, no and problems. But to answer your question, there were other genin before Naruto graduated. But they, meaning Taki and Anko, and sometimes innocent Hinata, ran them off, flunked them out, or made them quit. So they were stuck doing low C ranks and D rank until they found a permanent member. Now to those who say not to trust Google Translate, sure as hell already don't. But if you know of any other free apps, program, or even sites I can use, do tell me. If not, it's the closest thing I have, so just deal with it like I have to. I do, however, sometimes get the feeling that the thing isn't right, but it's all we got. And dear and beloved readers, please SDO telling me I need a beta. I already know that. Though I love the support you're giving me in my story, and I know you all are trying to help in the story. But please stop telling me I need a beta, it's annoying. So unless you're going to sign up for the job, or suggest someone who would be good for the job, please stop bringing it up in your reviews. Not, you can still tell me where I mess up at if you want, and if you write about it I'll drop a thanks to you in the next chapter or that chapter. Okay, thanks again for everything. Now in closing, warning rant ahead, this is not aimed at anyone in particular, this is just a general statement. I know I said to give your thoughts on my writing, but if you are just here to troll, you don't have to read. I mean, you must be full of shit if you are reading this, and it's the 5th chapter. You must have liked something about the story if you have read up to here. And if you are still going to troll anyway, at least have the balls to post under your pen name, if you have one. Not to offend anyone, but don't out when you're throwing your useless rocks. And can you believe someone had the nerve to send me a flaming email over just because I happen to like Narahina pairing? Really? You want to bitch about that? Look here, if you don't like my views, my coupling, or even me in general, get your hat, a coat, and leave Mother A. And to the bitch who told me to pick a single clan name for my story. I had that in there for a reason. Kisuke was showing Naruto's lineage and how he was related to both clans. Also to show why his parents had different names than what the clans were. Now, unless you're going to suggest a way to repair or improve the story, or even ask a question about why I did something. Shut your pan, keep you crap to yourselves, you poo-flinging monkeys. Now if you feel guilty about your action and want to make amends, go ahead and do so. Because we writers put our hearts and ideas on here because we want to share our story ideas with the world and want you to enjoy reading our efforts. Now if I have offended you, I'm sorry for it, and ask for forgiveness. Again, this is not aimed at anyone directly, but if you feel like it's about you, if the shoe fits, that's on you. And with all that, someone reminded me I didn't do a disclosure. Therefore, to you I give you, Sanda. Hey people of the Sanda Nation, I here to tell you that boss man don't own Naruto. Only the idea I end this story, and most importantly me. Looks at Sanda, I must have been crazy as hell when I made you. Gone back and fixed everything I could find. Let me know it y'all see anything else okay. August 13th, 19. A few more tweaks and repairs done. Last time on DVK. Now back to you my cute newbie, tell me what is going on. And why I don't get to use you like a punching bag. The somewhat peeved teacher asked for the last time the nice way, before she would just do it her normal way. Torture. She was kind of hoping to be able to do it her way. Naruto not knowing what he could say without telling an S-class secret, a secret that requires death as the punishment for breaking it. Therefore, he kept quiet, and with his silence, he sealed his fate in the eyes of the snake user. However, before she could get the chance to have her fun, a voice well known to the ninja called out, "He behind, please stop threatening the boy. He was for once following order higher than your pay grade." Everyone turned to see the third with 4 others flanking behind him and towards them. 2 of the newcomers Anko knew well. One as a friend and the other as the guy who was plowing said friend. They were sword-wielding couple, her friend Yuzuki Yugao and her friend Driller Gecko Hate. Yugao was dressed in her standard ANBU uniform with her Nico mask. In fact, the only one who wasn't in ANBU gear was Hate, and he was dressed in the regular outfit the Konoha Jonin wore. The other 2 ANBU were males and Anko only knew them in passing. Kuma and Taka were their code names, and she normally saw them chasing after her student back in the day. Sure, they were acting as glorified babysitters then, but the rumor around the Jonin lounge was that the 2 of them were expert sword user. Beat out only by the sword master couple in pure skill. However, strangely, not one of the 4 sword users had the instrument of their fame, their swords. Instead, they each had an Iato, metal practice swords meant for training that is more realistic. Now Chapter 5, now calling Sanda party of 8. If you would put the lad down, I'll explain everything, Hiruzen said, trying to defuse the situation. Upon hearing the request from her leader, Anko releases the boy. Only thing was she still had him upside down, so when the snakes let go the boy was dropped ungracefully hard to the ground. Both young girls snicker at Naruto's mishap, while the crowned god of shinobi could only shake his head at the snake princess's antics. Raising to his feet, the boy shot his sensei a dirty look as he dusted off. With the boy now on his feet, the third decided to start. First off, Gomen for the wait, but I had some things come up that I needed to take care of. Now as to why I am here today, it is because I wanted to personally oversee the progress on a project involving Naruto here, he said, pausing to take a draw from his pipe. In his break, Anko decided to cut in. What kind of project could the Gaki be useful for? The question brought a smirk to the old man's face. Oh, if she only knew. Well, you see, due to Naruto awakening a potently dangerous bloodline. One that if not taught how to properly handle it would be a giant disaster. One that could be likened to a second Kyuubi attack. Therefore, Naruto here was put through an intense training program to help him learn control, and according to his trainer, it worked. But he is still far from mastering it. As the information sunk in, eyes went wide in shock, as they began to wonder just what kind of Kekkei Genkai could the boy have? The adults present all knew about the boy being the holder of the Kyuubi, and there was always a chance that one day the boy would get fed up with how he was treated, and rightly go all 9 tails of the idiotic villagers. Hey, they were shocked he had not done so already. Now to hear that the very child the villagers fear had something else that could really sum shit up even more. If it was not one thing, it was another with this kid, Hokage-sama. If might ask what kind of Kekkei Genkai could be that strong, the lone female ANBU asked, truly curious about just what has she signed up to help the Hokage with. While she was trying to think about a way out. While the adults were worried, the girls were in awe of their new teammate. Even Taki, who at first couldn't care less about the boy, was now suddenly interested to find out just what could be so scary about a blonde idiot. Senso no Tamashi, the soul of war. A bloodline that has been lost to the world long before the first Shinobi War. Though nowadays this Kekkei Genkai still exists but only in two separate parts, and not since originator of this bloodline has ever the completed version been unlocked. Born from the reunion of the Tamashii no Gizo and Senso no Akiri, with both halves the Kekkei Genkai breeds a fighting force to be likened to facing a human Bijou. The old man told them, and instantly all but the Hokage and the boy in question became stunned by the information. The mature ninja tried to keep their eyes from popping out heads. Most of the Jonin and above had clashed with someone with one of the halves or had heard many a tale about the two clans with those bloodlines. They were able to put up one hell of a fight. Now to find out that this kid had a stronger and better version of what those ninja had, they were really questioning the decision to take this mission. So let me guess, the four of them are here to assist me in my testing? Anko asked after recovering from shock. Receiving a nod from her leader, she lets internal and grateful sigh of relief. This is the one time I am glad I didn't disobey orders this time. However, while the resident snake mistress was feeling more at ease, it quickly became the Genin's turn to sweat. Especially the girls of Team 11 were quite worried. Against their sensei, they did fine, but to face off against some of the village's top ninjas was crazy talk, and anyone would agree, almost anyone. Awesome, Naruto says, earning WTF stares from the girls and other ninja. What was wrong with this guy, they wondered. Alright, old man, I'll take your challenge and win. Finally, having heard enough talk, he had to ask and interrupting the boy in the middle of his rant. Dumbass, are you insane? She wondered, hoping she really was not stuck with a crazy moron teammate. The kind of teammate that tended to drag their other teammates into mess after mess. Looking towards the confused girl, he gave the back of his head a scratch. Putting on a straight face, he gave an answer. Just not one she was expecting. Nope, Gigi here has me tested 4 times a year just to be sure. They say while I'm not insane, I'm a type of crazy they haven't never seen before. Hell, they're even talking about naming the mental state after me, the boy said as if he was proud to be nuts. While everyone else gained, an anime-styled sweat dropped the girls due to Naruto's tone and attitude about being so ed in the head that doctors want to name a type crazy for you. While all the elder ninja from the fact that wasn't the first time a ninja of the village had a mental disease after or about them. The most recent prime example being the Mado craze of youthfulness. The vets shudder at the very remembrance when there was once an outbreak in the village. Throwing the nightmare-inducing memory aside as soon they possibly could, the adults internally sigh at the boy's statement. Mental illness was pretty much just as standard as kunai in their world, though most weren't as proud of their mental scars. Moving on, your assessment today will be in a mission using the entire square mile of Training Ground 43's dense forest, and once entered you are not allowed to exit until the end of the assessment. Simulation format is this scenario. Your unit has to intercept a scroll being carried by a high-ranking hostile traveling back to their command post. Each one of the shinobi in the delivery squad is at least a Jonin-level hostile. You cannot allow the scroll to fall in enemy hands, nor can you fail to retrieve your objective. Your goal is to ambush the enemy squadron, recover the objective, and the 3 of you to bring it back. Place it in my hands. You have 2 hours to do so, Sarutobi stated, pausing to take brief break, pulled out a storage scroll from inside his robes, and tossed it to Anko, who caught the scroll with ease. As she looked down at the scroll in hand, she hears, the old man speaks. You and your team are to keep that scroll away from these 3 teens at all times, he tells the adults, who all nod in understanding their mission. Taking another puff of his pipe, he decides to tell them all one last thing. And as a bit of warning, the Jonin here, while they are not allowed to go for killing blows, they are ordered to not hold back, especially against you, Naruto. Make no mistake, my young genin, this is not a game. This is a live combat situation and not up for discussion. Now you 3 have a 15-minute head start to set up your plans, and know for the purposes of this assessment the defining team here will be taking a straight path from here all the way to the other end and back again until time runs out. The exam will begin when the flare is shot up. You 3 might want to get going now, the elder said in a serious tone that left no room for anything to be said about it. Upon hearing the old man's words, the girls' teen looked briefly at one another before each grabbed one of Naruto's arms and turned to quickly haul ass away in complete fear of what might happen if they were caught. The teens quickly disappear into the darkness of the dark, dense forest. As soon as they were gone from sight, Yugao turned to look at the sworn lead a little concerned. Ano, Hokage-sama, were you actually serious about us going all out on 3 genin? She asked, wondering what was going through the Fire Shadow's mind. The Hokage smiled at the woman's reasonable question. Against the girl's no, but Naruto going as hard as you feel is needed without killing him. Now, and please keep my scroll with my collector edition of Ika Ika in its safe. And I want it to come back unharmed, you too, the Hokage said, looking at the lone 2 women who, after hearing about the contents of the scroll, were a bit annoyed about being made to protect an old man's porn collection. Shaking their heads at the request of their boss, they take off after the teens. Chuckling to himself, the old man couldn't wait until the real fun started when Naruto would draw one of his Zanpakutos. Meanwhile, back with our main hero and team. Will you two let's go already? Naruto shouted at his teammates, who were currently dragging him through the thick canopy. Although he was surprised by his team's mate's strong grip, he finally managed to break free and land on another branch. While the girls turned to look at their unrestrained team member from their perch. What are you doing? We need to keep moving, moron! Taki shouted, still freaked out about having to go up a team of jonin because of him, and the fact that the boy was not taking this seriously. In case you haven't realized, we have to face this impossible task, and there's no way in hell we can take them. She could not believe that Naruto was acting as they were taking a stroll or something. Not about to knowingly attack elite ninjas that were told to come at them with everything they had. While Hinata shared the worries of her friend, she was trying to keep a strong front up like all Hyuga were taught to do. However, she was not having an easy time doing so. Uzumaki-san, we are in danger if we stay here too long, the sliver-eyed heiress stated, trying to be the voice of reason in this stressful situation, trying to calm down the 2 hot heads she had for teammates. As the 2 stared each other down, their lead time was running out. Deciding that someone had to stand up and take charge, Hinata mustered up the guts to say what needed to be said. Enough! You 2 need to stop this now. This is not the time to be fighting each other when we have a hard enough job facing that squad of adults. Taking a small pause to turn towards her longtime friend, and try to reason with her. Taki-chan, I'm scared as well, but still. However, the girl in question cuts in. Scare? I'm not scared. Who said anything about being scared? She said in a rushed manner, trying to hide her insecurity, but no one bought it. As they just looked at her with a really you're trying that tactic, shaking her head, the lavender-eyed teen continued her rant. Anyway, we can't just run, nor can we just fight them on even grounds. We need to stop fighting and work together if we want to survive this or even have the slightest chance to actually pull this off. So quit being asses to each other and let's work as a team, the normally soft-spoken girl says, shocking Taki from the sheer fact of the prim and proper Hyuga just cursed. She already knew that her teammate was right even before she spoke, but she was still having a time accepting the fact of not only a male being partnered with them, but also the fact that the spot that once belonged to a dear friend and sister at arms was being filled. Moreover, they would soon be forced to move on, risking the chance for getting their classmate, friend, and rival, and the sacrifice she gave so Taki and Hinata could live on. That was why Taki put up such a fuss over Naruto. She did not want Suki Akimichi to be just another forgotten shinobi. Still, Suki would chew her out if she saw how Taki was acting after her passing. Putting all of her issues behind her for the moment, she gave Hinata an unspoken look of sorry. Let's do this. The 2 nod in silent understanding, while the poor newbie stayed completely out of the loop. So what's the plan? The Uchiha asked, ready to get on with their task, while normally either her or Hinata would come up with a plan of attack. Both were drawing complete blanks on how they could even survive this training mission. Seeing the puzzled looks on his teammates' faces, an idea strikes the boy as he quickly brought his hands into a cross-hand sign. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu, shouts the Uzumaki teen as 3 poofs of smoke appear on the nearby branch. The girls were slightly impressed, wondering how in the world of fresh out the academy genin could know a jutsu like that. Alright, you 3, make some more clone teams and scout out the area. Dispel yourselves when you catch sight of something we could use or could be good place to ambush them, he ordered to the Bunshins, and with a nod, they head off in random directions to perform their duty. The girls give a strange look to the wizard, wondering what was all that for. What? He asked concerning the funny looks he was getting. Okay, what was that? Questioned the Sharingan wielder, for once not speaking in a tone of an arrogant bitch, which somewhat surprised the Zanpakuto user. Nevertheless, Moving past the feeling, Naruto shrugs and simply states, "Well, no one was saying any ideas, so I thought maybe we could find a good place to set up or something." Upon hearing his answer, both girls could only agree on his actions being the best course. However, with them not even knowing how much time his clones would take to finish, the teens needed to be on the move and plotting. Taking off deeper into the trees to set up their plan, the trio took stock of everything they could use. "Okay, I have my Byakugan, which lets me have telescopic sight and chakra network X-raying, while Taki has her almost completed Sharingan," Hinata said, pausing to allow her old teammate to give a more accurate description of her Sharingan than a Hyuga could. Hearing the kind-hearted girl's setup, Taki continues where she left off, "Which gives me the ability to see chakra and through genjutsus, track fast-moving targets, and most importantly the ability to copy almost any technique I see." Taki, she said with more than a hint of pride in her Kekkai Genkai. She, like most Uchiha, thought highly of their clan's prized eyes, though she was one of the rare ones that wasn't so arrogant and lazy that they clutched on to it and not work on her own skills. Much like her cousin, Itachi did training and mastering her own powers and skills instead of just stealing another's hard work. Hearing the boastful mirth in Taki's voice about her bloodline, the Hyuga could only roll her eyes. Not because she didn't respect or appreciate the girl's abilities. No, it was just a Hyuga Uchiha bloodline rivalry thing. With each clan believing their clan had the better dojutsu, but to be honest about it all, it didn't real matter to her. "Okay, now that we've told you about our bloodlines, time to spill on yours," Taki said just as the three landed in a small clearing nearby an enormous tree. Naruto looked confused as to why were they stopping here. Being who he was, the boy just had to ask the dumb question. Why are stopping her for?" the boy asks in curious voice, all for Taki to give him a stern look. "Because I want to pay full attention when you finally explain just how the hell can you, a fresh-out genin, manage to put 5 seasoned vets on edge," she tells, being as blunt as a club about it. She had hardly ever seen their sensei so uneasy like she was, especially over facing a genin. While Hinata shared her friend's curiosity on the subject, she did wish Taki had been a bit more tactful about asking. Giving the girls a sheepish smile as he scratches the back of his head as he always did whenever he was caught in trouble in the village. Uzumaki racked the little of what brains he did have, trying to figure how to explain it all. "Well, you see the swords on my back?" he asks, getting nods in return. "Well, they're the first part of my bloodline. You see, my body made them," and he started to explain. However, when he said the last part, Taki scrunched up her face at what she thought was he giving a load of bull to them. "I call bullshit. What do you mean your swords are a part of your bloodline? That is impossible. Those blades of yours look like they had to be crafted and forged by an expert swordsmith," she says in a loud tone, interrupting her newest teammate. She couldn't believe that the weapons he was carrying could be a Kekkai Genkai. She had never heard of such a thing, a person making finely crafted metal weapons that could possibly pass as a master's work. She was sure the male just had to be spouting off a huge lie to try to impress them. She had heard about the boy from around town and her cousin Sasuke, about how he was a huge prankster. This all was nothing but a big joke for him, she figured. "They're called Zanpakutos, and they are really forged reflections of my own soul that were made just for me," he replies, a bit upset he was interrupted as he was. He didn't cut her bitch's self off when she was boasting about her eyes. Just how rude could she get, he wondered as he continued. "They not only are powerful weapons, but they're actually alive in their own right. That way they can really be the perfect partner to take in battle, but only after you learn the real names," he finished, and Taki was about to comment once more about his statement. However, a stern look from the Hyuga princess nipped the reply in the bud. While both of the girls were thrown by the boy's explanation, diplomacy being one of the main things taught to her when she was young, the lavender-eyed teen tried tactfully to ask if she was really understanding the sword wielder. "So let me see if I understand you, Uzumaki-kun. Your weapons on your back are actually a part of your Kekkai Genkai, that were made from your own soul, and they are sentient entities separate from you. Meant to act as your partner, but only after you learn their names first, is that correct?" she asks, trying to make sense of the jokester's words. The teen in question gives the girl a nod of yes after replaying what she had said in his head. "Okay then, here are my real questions. What happens if you learn their names? Why is learning them so important? Why does it seem you're talking about your Zanpakutos are not a pair? And how is this all relevant to why the examiners were having second thoughts? Asked the calm-headed heiress in a way, as she was sure she wasn't to offend the males Kekii Genkai and clan. Though Taki would have asked the same things, she was glad that her best friend was the one talking at the moment. Every time it seemed when she goes to speak to men, she always comes off like a huge bitch without really trying or sometimes wanting to. While she didn't really care for her new teammate, the last thing they needed right now was even more strife doing this test. Well, I'll answer your questions like this. It is important 'cause to learn their name you would have to be able to hear it. To hear it you normally have to a long time meditating becoming in tune with them, and then earn their trust. When you are able to hear their name it means that they now trust or either you are ready to wield the Zanpakuto's powers. And after the person knows their partner's name, they speak a short command called a kaido and unlock their partner's true form, power, and unique abilities within. As for if my two are a pair or not, the answer is hell no. In fact, while they each work great with me, the two of them can hardly stand the other. Well, more like one is annoying as hell and the other I have to stop from killing the annoying one. Though most times I feel like choking him myself because he never shuts up, and if you ever were to listen to even 5 seconds of him talking and you would completely agree with my opinion. Naruto says with a sweat drop at the end, he feels somewhat embarrassed by the fact his two blades seem to spend almost as much time teaching him than fighting with each other. They couldn't go 2 full minutes without Sanda saying something to piss Fu off. While the teen was groaning about his partners, when the ladies heard this they had to look at the other in disbelief. As it almost sounded like their teammate is completely insane, and the voices in his head aren't getting along very well. Both wondered if they should be the ones worry about their rookie along with the vets. Figuring he should go on and change the subject from the tales of his dysfunctional Zanpakutos, Naruto continues. Now I don't know if it's common for others with my Kekii Genkai to have 2 completely separate swords like I do. But then again, according to both my gramps and the old man, there hasn't been someone like me since before even the first founded the village. So I don't know the answer to that one. Finally, as to how this is all relevant. Well, from my dad's side, which is who, I get the Gizo no Tamashi to begin with. The clan is infamous for having warriors that are hard enough to face to start with, especially with their Zanpakutos at their sides. But as well as differing so greatly from each other, there isn't a way to know what they can do their own selves. Then to add whatever their unique weapon is able to do, you end up with an opponent that you can't plan for. He says with a little pride about that thanks to his clan he really was Konoha's the #1 unpredictable knucklehead ninja. Upon hearing the explanation, both of the older teens couldn't help but see just how the tester would be a bit on edge about this mission. Unknowns were in the ninja age were a given, but most things can be planned ahead for. Well, most times anyway. However, most vets tried their best to avoid having to go in with little to no idea what to expect or have a plan for. Heck, most times you didn't get to become a vet by just flying in blindly. Nevertheless, to have no other choice but to go in with absolutely no clue what to expect to be up against, Elder Ninja knew of those being the missions that most don't come back from. Alternatively, even without someone on your team being Kia, most shinobi stray away from those assignments. But that couldn't be the reason the adults were so spooked, they both thought. Or it could be from the other side of my bloodline that gives me insane healing and in battle recovery, a ton of both stamina and chakra that replenishes itself as the fight goes on. And makes it so that I not only get even stronger the longer I fight, but also becomes even more aggressive and wilder than I was at the beginning of the battle. Yeah, I think that may be it, the lower-witted teen states in a voice that made it sound like it wasn't all that a big of deal. Then for him to finally realize the main reason why all the worry caused both girls to face fault at the boy's simpleness. Yeah, if I had to go into a fight where the only thing I'm certain of is that my foe is not only a powerhouse you can see just about anything from, then add the fact that while I'm fighting and getting tired he can go at his full strength continuously. In addition, if that wasn't enough, the fact that the fool actually gets stronger the longer the fight. I too would be weary of going through with it, Taki thought as she got back to her feet. Well, now that they knew why all the overkill for a simple test, now came the time to figure out just how the hell to pull this off. Silence covered the small area as each tried to come up with some kind of plan. So what do we know about the opposing side? Asked Hinata, breaking the silence and attempting to get some kind of verbal dialogue going. Well, we already know all about Sensei, and I've heard rumors that the sickly guy is expert in kenjutsu, states the Uchiha, adding to the conversion. Taking on a deep thought look, Naruto tries to remember something that might help. Well, I know the ANBU Nico 'cause she used to watch over me when I was younger, and she was really badass with her sword from what I remember, he said, keeping the information flowing. Though now the girls were wondering why did he need protection from an ANBU as a kid. As if he could sense the question coming, he heads it off. Don't ask, I might tell you later down the line. For now let's get to passing the test, the boy says in a deadpan tone, and the girls push their questions out of their minds to focus on their task. Though Taki then made it a goal to find out the male's secret at the first chance she got, and the other two used to chase after me whenever I pulled pranks. Wait, he says, pausing mid-sentence, as if he was having an epiphany or stroke. Hell yeah, I've got it, Databeo, he suddenly shouts as he does a small celebratory dance for his ingenious idea. Meanwhile, his teammates were looking at him strangely. Not just because he was shouting like some idiot, but also for that dumb-ass catchphrase he just used. Having enough of being out of the loop, Taki was forced to cut in. Okay then, genius, you mind cluing us in on your supposed brilliant idea? She says with an annoyed tone, figuring that he was about to spout out some moronic crap. Realizing that he was currently the only one who knew the idea, he nervously scratches the back of his head again, while laughing just as nervous. I figured why not do what I normally would if I was on a pranking spree. It's sort of like trap setting, I mean, Naruto suggests, not knowing if they would care for his idea. Not really thinking about just what he had said, Taki was about to automatically trash talk the male's input. Thankfully, before she could once again put her foot in her mouth, Hinata replies first. Okay, that's actually not a half-bad suggestion. I mean, from what I heard around town, you somehow managed to many a seasoned ninja to fall prey to one of your pranks. So if anyone here has prior experience taking down a higher-ranking ninja with an ambush, it would be you. So do you have any kind of ideas or a plan in mind? She says, and for a reply, the boy only smiled. Just before the sound of the flare being fired ended, their first and hardest task they have faced together began. So Naruto tells them the basic plan he devised, as the two older teens help piece it all together. 20 minutes later, with the Jonin party, the 5 of the members of the squad jumped through the treetops, on their first of what they figured would be straight runs to the other side of the forest. Hate and Nico were bringing up the rear, with Anko in the center. Kuma and Taka lead the charge on their journey, ready for whatever kind of play the genin might make. The group was just about at the halfway mark when Kuma stopped the group with the Umbu hand command of a closed fist. His years of experience were telling him that something was off. Looking towards Nico, she nods before she sets off a chakra sonar pulse. Realizing what her senses were telling her, she drops into a battle stance, gripping her sword. Be on guard, we're surrounded, the lone swordwoman says to her comrades, and they all move to be ready for anything. After all, they were facing both the village's #1 prankster and 2 students trained by the infamous Anko. With the rustling of leaves, a pair of feet land on branch in front of them. Immediately the group recognized them to be the very team they were told to worry about. "Ah, you guys found me," Naruto says as he puts his arms back behind his head, looking somewhat disappointed. Before his face suddenly took on a super mischievous expression. "Well, if that's the case, time for Plan B, hit it," he shouts, and in another clone, drops down from the tree with an odd device. One that most of the adults figured the teen had gotten from the eccentric inventor he called grandfather. With a push of a button and a click, the device started to blast out a catchy tune, A/N playing Poison. And the song started up. All 5 veterans stared, truly confused at the sight before them. Especially after the teen started to sing along with the song and do the Turk dance. After about a minute of actually watching the spectacle, the teen finished with his dance, and suddenly poofed away. And the device started to blast an extremely irritating sound that caused all of the vets to cover their ears. After a few seconds, Anko had had enough, quickly pulling out a kunai. She expertly throws it at the device with great speed, however, before it could hit, the strange object suddenly explodes in a mess of multicolored paints. In an instant, the area went from a lush green forest into a splattered mess of neon colors. And unfortunately, none of the poor Jonin escaped unscathed. Thou the managed to substitute to avoid the majority of the paint. Each of the adults had still managed to be splattered in one place or another. As each inspected just how much had got on them, their noses were hit with an extremely vile odor that had them nearly gagging. And as they wondered just where such a foul smell was coming from, a voice echoed out, "Just so you know, that smell won't come out for about 10 days. They hear the teen shout, in a mirthful tone. Upon hearing that, they all start to worry if Naruto was just messing with them, or was he actually being serious. Or you guys could just give the scroll now, and I'll tell you how to get rid of it immediately," he shouts again, with his voice seemingly coming from everywhere at once. While the thought had crossed their minds, they knew if they had taken the deal none of them could have lived it down. Figuring that this distraction had taken long enough, Kuma was about to get the unit back moving again, when the sound of rustling leaves caught his attention, and 5 clones rush out at the adults from different positions. "Banzai!" the teen clones shout as each went after their own target Jonin. A foolhardy idea in the minds of the adults, as each of them expertly dispatched their attacker with ease. However, unbeknownst to them, each of those clones had been carrying a smoke pellet, and when the clones went pop, the smoke pellets exploded into clouds of gas that surrounded the group. Not wanting to take any chances, the veterans leaped from the cloud quickly, lest the genin try and take advantage of the smoke. Unfortunately, they had done exactly what the teens thought they would. The second they landed out of the smoke, they began to notice something was wrong, especially when both unmasked ninjas suddenly began to sneeze uncontrollably. Kuma realizes what the clouds were: sneezing powder. The brats used the clouds of sneezing powder to mess with them, but before the masked ones were even able to be thankful for their masks having filter seals. Their bodies began to feel itchy all over, alarming all of the ninjas. "Who the hell uses sneezing dust and itching powder tags out in the field?" shouted the now completely enraged Snake Sensei, as she tries to quell her irritated skin. Meanwhile, with old Sarutobi, the leader had brought a sealed chair and his viewing orbs so he could watch the exam. Currently he was caught between laughing hysterically and being upset that his older warriors were falling for the teens' antics. Now, in all the years he has been around, never has he heard of someone using tactics like these. In an odd way, while they were completely childish, it was ingenious really. No one would ever expect for something like this in real combat, nor would someone really know how to really deal with such a situation at a time like that. Back to the forest, Anko had enough and was about to lose her calm battle mindset. "That's it. I know that the one behind all this is you, boy. As my girls know better. When I get my hands on you, I'm going to wring you Kami damn neck," she shouts at the top of her lungs, looking more crazed by the passing moment. Huffing heavily as her eye quickly darted around the area trying to catch a glimpse of her prey. As the rest of her squad began to seriously worry about the current sanity of Anko, suddenly they all felt a certain source of a massive amount of chakra nearby, all drawing their weapons ready to strike at whatever may come at them next. "Ladies, germs, and the crazy yet YANKO, thank you for bearing with us our opening ACT." They hear the boy's voice echo all around them, as each of the veteran shinobi scanning around for the body it belonged to. Part of them, except Anko, wanted to warn the boy to escape the hellish rage that was sure to come from Anko. The part of them that won out, however, wanted to see the menace suffer for the hell he had just put them all through. "But now, it's time for the headliner to give you one hell of a show," they hear before Naruto seemingly appears out nowhere right in front of the adults. Finally, seeing the source of all their ire before them, made them want to all go to rush the teen. However, when Taka noticed the fact that the wizard had his wazkazi drawn pointed towards them, and a shit-eating devilish grin, he had a bad feeling about what the brat had planned next. And at the exact same time, unseen to them all, the very spirit of the weapon being held had an even greater and more deranged grin, as his area's lights all began to surge. "WHA, I get to come out and play HHA ha 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 HHA. Alright kid, let's GIVM the most electrifying show of their lives. Tell me kid what's my name?" The crazed weapons soul cries out to both the heavens and his wielder, with extreme glee. The ANBU calls for the group to not to charge. Alas, his warning was too late as the other ninjas were halfway to their target. The teen, seeing the enraged Jonin charging at him, did not make to run away. Instead, he just shouts, "Shotemu, Retsushi Yaku Sekai, Sandakuraji," cries the teen before he was enveloped in a bright blinding light. The charging ninjas were forced to stop and cover their eyes. When the light faded, all looked and saw their target was gone. Quickly they searched for the teen, before suddenly he appears out of nowhere right in front of Nico, who was the second closest to where the surprising the woman. As soon as he landed, she sees him with his fist cocked back, and was covered in lightning. The attack was coming with a far quicker speed than she thought only Guy could ever manage, aimed right at her face. It was sure to be decimating blow if it connected, but with no time to counter, Kawarimi no jutsu or even block, she was forced to take the hit. While she was able to see it coming in amazing well, it was just she wasn't able to get her body to react quick enough. She had let her skills slip, and now she was about to pay the price for it. What made it worse to her was she could see the snarky smirk on his face, knowing that she couldn't dodge, and he had her served up fresh. "Heads up! Rakurai Ken!" he shouts just before the attack hits dead center of her cat mask. First thing she felt was the voltage being sent through her body, so painful that she couldn't even scream. Then next was the strength behind the punching portion of the move, smashing the mask back into the face it was there to protect. Instead of struggling against the punch, she relaxes and lets it just hit and go with the punch. That way, though she was still probably going to be in a world of hurt, she wouldn't be as hurt as if she tried to hold her ground. Although she began to wonder if that really was the best course of action when she felt her feet leaving the branch she was on as she started to fly backwards at a rapidly increasing speed. While she had actually been hit harder than this over her career and survived it enough to keep on fighting in the same battle. This particular hit was quite painful, and happened to pretty high up on the hardest hits she had ever received. For the others, 1 second they were looking for the brat, the next they knew the cat-masked woman being hit by the teen who just blurred out of thin air. Then be rocked so hard that just seemed that she herself had become a blurring force. They all look in both confusion and disbelief as they watch their comrade helplessly go flying back a good 500 feet before her back slams hard into the trunk high in the trees and bounces off it just as hard. Falling down, she landed on another large branch, with a thud, not even attempting to brace her fall. Seeing his girlfriend being hit like that, Hate's eyes widen in worry before he takes off to go check on her. The rest of the adults were stunned, seeing just what had happened and what the blonde now had. Gone was the boy's blades, and now from somewhere it seems he had gotten a new weapon. Wait, I think this is what they call a shuriken. The Kuma Anbu thinks as he and the other captains studied the weapons as best they could. However, before either could even get a good look at the things, the boy vanishes once more, leaving no tractable trail behind. The 3 jonin who stayed behind all curse under their breaths at losing sight of their attacker. The Anbu ninja tried to sense the teen's chakra signature, but for some reason they could not get a fixed lock on where he'd went. Looking around carefully, Anko was even more upset at the fact that her student just knocked out one of her drinking friends with a single punch that was supposedly stronger than she was. To top it off, now no one could find the damn brat. Suddenly feels something touch her right shoulder. She swings around, kunai in hand, to find no one there, confused by this until she heard, "Hey!" she hears, turning to face her prey just in time to see him darting along the branch that she stood on, coming straight for her. Naruto was going just under the speed where her eyes could no longer keep up. His hand cocked back as electrical energy built up around his fist, and something in between his fingers. She thought she could time his attack out, until he just blurred from sight, hearing the teen shout, "Tai Zasatorai Kakyukuro." The next thing she knew, she feels something claw her side as it blew right past her. She grits her teeth in pain, trying to herself from screaming out in pain. Not just the something just from having her left side raked by some invisible force, but also feeling the lightning shocking her as claw passes by her. Being spun all the way around by the force of whatever had just passed her, she managed to catch her balance, quickly turning the direction the force went. However, just as she turned, she was clawed on her other side like before. Her jacket and fishnet top were already messed up from paint explosion, but now they had gaping holes in it. This time, before she could even catch her balance, the force makes another pass, catching her again. Even while she was still spinning from the latest attack, one final pass occurs, causing her to twirl around 1080 degrees. Anko falls down, straddling branch trying not to either fall off or lose her lunch from being so dizzy. Even dazed, hurt clothes torn up and upset, the woman could still feel something was wrong. Like something was missing. "Oh sensei," the woman hears from behind, looking back to see the ire of her problems taunting her. Although, when she saw that he was displaying something to everyone in both hands, she quickly recognized just what it was. For in his hand, showing all to see, was her underwear, not just any pair but the very ones that were supposed to be on her less than a minute ago. Feeling a sudden cold draft between her legs, Anko couldn't even comprehend how he even got them without her knowing it. Nevertheless, right then she couldn't have cared less. As she had finally reached her breaking point, and now, the boy had to actually die today. "Hey amahaha! You're dead, you little bastard," she shouts at the teen, yet still holding up the lacy undergarments for both A and BU who were rushing toward the boy. However, with the revealing of the underwear, both were forced to come to a halt and try to stop the blood from rushing out of their noses. "Oh my, sensei, aren't we the naughty girl?" Naruto teased, before having to suddenly duck out of the way of a kunai that was aimed to pierce his forehead. Glancing back at the thrown object for a second, he turns back to see the furious woman back on her feet, kunai out, and snakes coming out of what was left of her sleeves. Realizing that was his cue to leave, the boy pockets the stolen goods and blurred away before a rain of kunai fall bombard where he was. Seeing her prey yet again missing, searched the surrounding treetops for any clue to her soon-to-be dead genin. "You who miss why down here?" she heard, turning her attention to the forest floor, and saw her future mantelpiece deviously smirking at her. "You follow old Rafiki now. He knows the way, and sorry, couldn't help myself," the teen says, mimicking a famous monkey before he takes off, strangely enough just running in deeper to the woods. Letting out a wild woman's cry, she jumps down the 90-foot tree branch she was on to the ground, chasing after the teen. While back in the treetops, the two male A and BU managed to fix their noses, as the other two members of their temporary squad rejoined them. Nico being helped to stand by with her arms slung over her boyfriend's shoulder. While for the most part she was fine and looked it, though still dazed from the hit, figuring she now had a concussion or two. The only thing that showed she had been hit was her mask, which was cracked so badly the other two A and BU wonder how it was even staying on. It had a huge dent dead center that held the imprint of the boy's fist and weapon. Not even wanting to get on the subject how it was even possible for a rookie to do such a thing, Taka looks at the couple. Though before they could even ask if she was okay, she responds first. "Look, I'm fine, think. But right now, Taka and Kuma, you need to chase after them, before she actually kills the little pest. And we all catch hell for it." Hearing her reply, the other masked ninja agree with her assessment of the situation. Both nod to the couple before Kuma took off and stayed back a second to give new orders. "We'll go after them. Nico, you stay here with Hate and try to recover," he says before he too takes off after Anko and the boy. Seeing them leave, the lovers couldn't help but wonder what the hell could happen next. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Phantom Raven for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.